Warning, the Dub Talk podcast may contain language and content that may not be suitable for younger audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Please be aware that this episode of Dub Talk will contain spoilers for the entirety of Season 1 of When They Cry, as well as potential spoilers for other anime series. Lastly, please be aware that the views and opinions expressed in this episode do not reflect those of Dub Talk as a whole. What you're seeking is a serious discussion. What you found is endless rambling. At the end of this road lies the time that you've wasted. Dub Talk, Halloween Chapter, Episode 2, When They Cry. Can you believe in this?
Greetings, dear ghosts and ghouls. Welcome to Dub Talk, the spooky podcast where we discuss the latest and greatest in English dubs. My name is Stephanie, and welcome to tonight's horror-filled Halloween episode. This year's participants, are Jet, Noah, and Amon.
My invitation said that we were all getting free candy in the back of the windowless van.
I don't know what's happening, but I know I'm taking them home with me.
Come on, folks, let's stick around. Take a load off. If you sit still, I'll use this axe to help you take a big load off. Yes, you heard it. You heard
God damn it!
Yes, you heard it here first, folks. I've been cast as the Crypt Keeper in the new reboot of Tales from the Crypt coming never.
Yay! Oh, now I gotta get back into character. Shit!
Sorry.
I mean, with HBO's new family-friendly direction, Amon, I think a nice cuddlier Crypt Keeper would actually fit pretty well with their new image.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Now. Last Halloween, we covered the Cute Girl series, School Live. This year, we're going to be talking about another series with cute girls.
How
Are you excited for it?
How did that happen? Two back-to-back episodes about anime with cute moe girls that are not what they seem. How did that become a thing?
Japanese
Not
horror,
sure,
like...
but apparently it's a thing right now. Are you excited for this one, boys?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Alright, just us two? Cool.
No, I'm excited for this nail-biting good time.
Yes.
And you know, I'm so happy that I'd like to take a swing at this show, if I might.
God damn it.
It'll be a
truly
wrenching experience.
Oh, hey. Alright, at this stage, I'm just broke character this whole freaking time. I'm gonna go normal now. Tonight, we're gonna be discussing the English dub of Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, or When They Cry. If this is... As Noah cries in the corner right now. God damn it. If this is your first time hearing about this series, let me give you all the horrific details. Moving to the picturesque town of Hinamizawa is going to be a big adjustment for Keiichi. For all its beauty, it's also tiny. So small there's only one school, one where most of the students have known each other all their lives. Fortunately, he soon meets 4 girls, Rena, Meon, Satoko, and Rekka, who are willing to let the new guy in town join their after-school club. And for a while, things seem wonderful, until Keiichi starts discovering strange things, like the project manager for a controversial dam project being found dismembered 5 years ago.
Lilac, watch your language. We don't say the D word around here.
Dam?
Yeah.
Okay. My bad, we gotta censor that now.
No, it's a joke, because if someone didn't understand it, she's actually talking about the construction project dam, not it's a dam project, not like it's a damn good project.
I think people got it. Anyway, as he digs deeper, there are whispers and rumors of other murders and disappearances, stories of a town curse, and mysterious rituals. And then people he knows starts to die. What secrets have the people of Hinamizawa kept hidden from the rest of the world? And could his new friends somehow be involved? Now, Higurashi in of itself is actually an interesting story, production-wise, and I think Jed is also familiar with this, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So originally, season 1 of Higurashi, which is, just to give you a heads up now, we're only covering season 1 of the show. So season 1 of Higurashi was originally licensed, dubbed, and released by Geneon back in the mid-2000s. But I think with a combination of poor sales and the fact that Geneon kind of closed down, the series went out of print for a good span of time. / we didn't get the sequel seasons for a good span of time. And then the story after that goes is Funimation actually rescued the first season and did absolutely nothing with the damn thing. And not streaming-wise, not home video-wise, nothing. They just had it in their hands for a long-ass time, let it expire, and then I believe, what was it? It was...
Sentai Filmworks?
Well, yeah, but I think it was like about, 2012, 13-ish?
Yes.
Where, around that point, when Sentai Filmworks not only rescued season 1 of Higurashi, but for the first time in the States, they also licensed the sequel seasons, Higurashi Kai and Higurashi Rei, the OVA series. However, even though all 2 seasons and the OVA are on home video, they actually didn't go and dub the sequel seasons. So the only English dub we still currently have is for this first season, which in and of itself is very strange. But to be fair, it also makes sense given what Geneon did with the show. Because for people who don't know, Geneon originally is an LA-based licensing company.
Was an LA-based licensing company. They died a very painful death. Those of you who were around back in the, I think it was around 2009 is when the great Geneon crash happened.
2008, 2009, yeah, around then. It was before I graduated high school, which is shocking.
Yeah, there's a...
Before I really knew what anime was.
So yeah, so we'll be it sounds like we'll be talking about a dub for Los Angeles actors, is that correct?
That is correct.
Nice.
More of an Cali, LA-based dub. But anyway, on this frightful evening, we will be going through the cast, discuss performances, and give our thoughts on the dub as a whole. This is your final warning, because if the first things first when it comes to Higurashi, it is a horror show, and is a very, very gory, gruesome horror show. Alright? There are children who murder themselves, who commit suicide, and who get killed, and all this other fun stuff. If you are not the kind of person who's into child murder and or gore to, like, extreme lengths, almost like torture as well, telling you this now, this show is not going to be for you.
Yeah, Battle Royale has nothing on this series.
Battle Royale is nothing.
I like to think I have a pretty good constitution for, like, gore and awful stuff in media, especially horror media. Higurashi contains the single most upsetting scene in any anime that I've ever seen, and I do not think it is ever going to lose that status.
Which one? There's so many upsetting scenes. Which one?
It's not the first time Shion has to use the machine, and it's not the third time she has to use the machine. It's the second one where she whiffs it.
Oh god.
It is the worst scene I've ever seen.
It just makes your skin crawl just thinking about it.
You don't even need to see it happen, you just know, and that makes it so much worse.
I feel like that's a line most people won't cross. Like, when it comes to chopping off an arm, totally fine. Stabbing yourself in the chest, perfectly fine. But fingernails, that's a line too far.
Nope.
The other fun fact about Higurashi is the show is actually based on a visual novel style game by 7th Expansion as well. So this was originally a visual novel, a horror visual novel, ladies and gentlemen.
And if you think that visual novels themselves are already scary enough, then we've just made it even scarier.
Ta-da! All right, so are we ready to get this wild ride into the dark unknown started for the evening, gentlemen?
Yes.
Fire it up, fire it up, fire it up.
Literally?
And send it drifting with the cotton.
Like Cotton Drifting Festival. Oh, Lord. All right. So we're going to kick things off with, of course, the ADR director as well as our scriptwriters. We actually have two here. So our ADR director is actually Miss Christy Reed, who has also directed series such as A Cell World, Ghost Slayers, Ayashi, and Vampire Knight. Christy also serves... Yeah, Vampire Knight. I had to put that in there.
I've seen none of it. I have seen absolutely none of Vampire Knight, but its reputation precedes it so much that it feels like one of those shows that's so bad that you have to watch it.
It's the anime version of Twilight, boys and girls.
Oh, okay, so yes.
Anyway, Christy actually also serves as the lead writer between the two script writers here, to which she has written scripts for series such as Witch Hunter Robin, Last Exile, and Moribito, Guardian of the Spirit. Meanwhile, for episodes 2 and 3, a name that we all know on the LA side, we have Alex Von David as serving as a scriptwriter as well, who has done scripts for Erased, Lucky Star, and Madoka Magica. So I'm going to start with Amon. What are your thoughts on the directing and writing of Higurashi?
Don't be, kind. Be as vicious and bloodthirsty as possible.
But I don't want to be that. But I want to be vicious. I didn't think it was very bad.
Oh yeah. There's another thing we forgot. Here's the other thing we forgot to point out. For some reason, Higurashi's dub is infamously bad.
Which that was the thing. I've been aware of that going into this, and I've seen the show all the way through previously. I cannot for the life of me remember if I watched it dubbed or subbed. But watching it now, I didn't find it that bad.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's nothing to write home about. It doesn't feel like if you compare it to what I feel like is maybe like your average Funimation simuldub that's coming out these days, it is probably not as strong. It's a little looser. Some of the performances, well, not terrible, are just kind of like okay often enough. I think probably not helped by the fact that about half the characters are trying to do like super high-pitched moe cutesy voices, which tend to be a little dodgy in English.
I mean, because let's keep in mind that this was dubbed in the late 2000s, before English actors had really perfected that archetype of the moe character, or the moe female character.
Yeah.
I believe if we're getting the exact date, because I was working on I was actually working on a blog post on my new blog for Halloween type series. I believe the DVD release for Higurashi from Genon was originally around 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're. I guess the question is, Amon, are we comparing it to dubs of the time period or just what we're used to in 2018?
It is hard to say because at this point I have not watched anything contemporary to this recently enough to have a fair shake in terms of that. That being said, I don't think this is a bad dub. I just think it's kind of wobbly, I think would probably be the way to put it. It is. Okay. I think, oddly enough, I think it actually works very well for the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Just because Higurashi likes to play around with the... I'm sorry, my cat's having a sneezing fit right now. You okay, buddy?
Kitty! Oh no, Kitty!
And then one of the characters comes out and says, "We should let the good little kitties go."
God damn it.
Where was I? Higurashi, the actual show, likes to play around. This is one of the few instances where Studio Dean's tendency to not always have the best animation, I think, kind of works for it.
Oh god!
Because
oh my god, that animation!
Oh my god!
So often it ends up going into off-model in ways that kind of help make everything more upsetting. And much the same way, I sometimes feel some of the ways that this dub is a little weird and flat actually kind of work for it, both in the sense of it gives it kind of a B-movie horror vibe, which I think feels very appropriate.
Yes.
And also just because, sometimes the characters aren't really acting normal. So them not sounding normal kind of helps. I'm not sure how much of that was intentional on Christy and Alex's part, but hey, if it works for the show, I'm not going to complain. I actually found this very, very watchable and easy to listen to, if a little bit dated sounding compared to something you would watch brand new, made today.
Okay.
So it has issues, but on the whole, actually, I liked it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay.
you know, I thought it worked well for the show.
Interesting.
That's a very
Jet.
glowing praise.
It is. Considering how infamous the reputation, unfortunately, this one does have. Jet, what are your thoughts on the directing and writing for Higurashi?
Okay. So nowadays, Bang Zoom is pretty consistent when it comes to quality, and they put out some of the best sounding stuff the industry currently has to offer. But the Bang Zoom of yesteryear was a lot rougher around the edges, and that probably has to do with how their philosophy has kind of like evolved over the years.
Okay.
In their early days, the general goal for Bang Zoom with their dubs was to produce a sound as close to the Japanese version as possible. And that's kind of reflected in both the direction and the script here. The actresses who comprised much of the show's central cast were very clearly directed to imitate the moe girl voices used by their seiyuu counterparts. And the dub script is, like, slavishly faithful to the Japanese track to the point where they even tried to recreate some of the specific verbal mannerisms that were used. The problem is that, in some respects, it sounds a little bit too much like an imitation. While the actors here can emote when they need to, a lot of the time they sound kind of awkward outside of the bigger moments because they're trying a little bit too hard to mimic the same performances and not bringing quite enough of their own energy into the mix. And similarly, while the script does enough tweaks to avoid feeling like a one-for-one comparison of the subtitle track, there's a little bit more they could have maybe done to add to the atmosphere of the show, considering, you know, the time period and place it takes place in, like, I think it's supposed to be like the 80s or something.
Yes, the early 1980s.
It is.
I think it's June of 83, I want to say.
That is the date they keep showing.
Yeah, yeah, so it feels like they maybe could have had some fun with that. But anyway, to be fair, Chrissy Reed has directed several things I've liked, like Excel World and Durara. And while the dub is lacking in a few areas, it's perfectly serviceable for the most part. But this is probably the weakest of her work that I've seen. I mean, granted, I haven't seen Vampire Knight, and I don't really want to. If anything, it's made me happy to see how much he's evolved over the years.
I will let you know how Vampire Knight is. The dub, oh lord, why? Look here. I was obsessed with that show in high school, unfortunately.
Oh no.
And then when I saw the show again in the English dub when I was in college a few years later, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
It spoke to you though.
I also realized at that time that Vampire Knight is absolute garbage, but Steph learned a lot of things in college, ladies and gentlemen. Jet, quick question, because I don't think I've actually ever asked this, and I don't think this is, as far as I know, if it's never been brought up. Because you're basically, for all of us, the resident Cali person here, in terms of the industry on that end. Around when was Bang Zoom even formed? I'm curious.
I do not know.
Unless
actually.
you don't know.
I mean,
so definitely, like, at least it has been formed by the mid-2000s for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely formed by the mid-2000s. I want to say at least by like early 2000s. Because okay. I know they were formed after animes, and I know the people at animes kind of complained about that. So
gotcha. Okay, it's good to know. I was just thinking context-wise, because it's interesting that you brought up how their philosophy in terms of dubbing shows was very different back then than it is now. Which makes it really actually good point.
Like some of that's still there, but they've like very clearly gotten better at that sort of thing. So
okay. Noah, so this is what's interesting for you is because I'll let you go into your thoughts. You've actually never seen the show at all before, compared to the four of us.
No, this was first time for me. I had I've only known about the show infamously as a Studio Dean show, which means I knew what animation to expect out of it, and a horror show with moe elements to it. So the expectations were actually, I didn't even know what to expect on this one, and I got a lot more out of this than I thought I would.
The reaction he got today, I was at work and he sent a picture. Oh dear sweet baby Jesus. He's like, what is this?
To go back to the nail thing, it was the machine that Amon was referencing, and I'm like, oh god, yes. Oh god, oh god.
The thing that rips your nails out, ladies and gentlemen.
And the thing is that I'm not usually much for watching horror shows. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't usually watch, like, The Crow or Nightmare on Elm Street or Freddy vs. Jason.
See, Nightmare on Elm Street gave me nightmares as a child. As a horror person who loves horror, it gave me nightmares as a child.
I'm not really a horror person at all, so I figured,
No, to pull the snob card, the fact that you categorized The Crow as one of the horror movies you've seen says a lot about how much horror media you've consumed.
And Noah's put to his place.
Look, I see. Look. Don't get me wrong. I entirely see what you're going for. It's definitely a thing it's writing.
I get,
but no,
it's not okay. You wouldn't call that a horror movie.
I get what you mean though.
Oh, okay, maybe it's stuff like House on the Hill, or yeah, that kind of stuff. My entire repertoire of knowledge for actual horror movies entirely comes from my wife, actually. Jennifer loves that kind of stuff, and every Friday the 13th, we have to watch scary movies, so
nice.
So this was something
she's a keeper. She's definitely a keeper, Noah.
Yes, she's a keeper. That was up for debate, but now that you mention it, thank you, Lilac. Speaking of being keepers, the characters in this show, I'm glad that you mentioned, Amon, that the cheesiness of the acting on this kind of matches with what the show itself actually is, because the routes that the direction and writing had to go with this, Christy had the option that she could have made this more of a straightforward, dramatic show in dub format, which honestly could have worked because there's a lot of political intrigue and familial bonds being broken and heartbreak and a lot of things that actually lend themselves to dramatic moments. But because they're so tied into this town's backwater mythology and crazy people and a lot of things that lend itself to melodrama, I'm super glad that they decided to go the cheesier route instead for most of it. So when characters snap, like there's one character in particular we'll talk about who absolutely breaks. She is so delightfully fun to listen to in the way that she was directed.
See, a lot of these characters break. You might have to be specific.
Well, I left it intentionally ambiguous because whatever character you people in the audience were thinking of, yes, that one. Because it plays
all of them. It's all of them. That's the answer. All of them.
So yeah, so I also, knowing the reputation of the show in as far as its voice acting goes, I knew that they had cast mostly unknowns in this, which I thought might lend itself to amateurish sounding acting, but they honestly sound like they're having fun. There's a lot of scenes where it sounds flat, and it honestly sounds like they're trying to be cheesy. So it doesn't really feel like a failing of the direction or the acting. It really feels like an intentional flavor that they were going for. Kind of like you said, with a B-movie feeling.
Okay.
Now, on the note of being unknowns, like, I mean...
I'm about to say, I'm like, Jet, I don't know if any of these were relative unknowns. There's a few that haven't done a lot.
Okay, there's a few that haven't done a lot. Like, granted, I'm not sure when certain people started their careers, but I know at least a couple of the people on this show had been around for a while by that point, so...
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just meant less known than who were getting the most voice acting work in the mid-2000s. Like, there's no Wendy Lee here, there's no Lucy Christian, there's no Monica Rial.
Fair.
Yeah. Which isn't a knock against it. It's just you have expectations going in. But speaking of the writing, I wanted to say something on the writing. I don't even think that it has many faults on it, because this is one of the choppiest matches to lip flap shows that I think I've ever seen dubbed. Like, I'm watching the show, and I'm used to a certain level of fidelity when it comes to matching consonants and syllables to the way that the lips are flapping. This one was just all over the place for a good chunk of the show. And that's not a bad thing, because honestly with a show this goofy and melodramatic, I'm okay with them being a little more loose on that, but it definitely stood out a lot more when I'm looking at, okay, they're writing the script to try to, sound more natural at the expense of not matching up to the syllables of the actual lip flaps. I don't really think that's a problem with the writing, because I don't have any faults with the way that they wrote everything. Everyone's says what they're supposed to. You can understand it perfectly well. It's just all gonna come down to how much of that cheesy science fiction double feature kind of flavor you like in your anime. And for a show like this, like I said, which is very silly a lot of the times, I'm glad that they went with this way. I don't get this a whole lot in a lot of anime, so once in a while, this is exactly what you need.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going to be agreeing on all of the points you guys just said here. I will say, the first note I wrote down when I was watching this show, and I think I was watching episode 1, was right away, this dub isn't the best quality in the world.
No, really?
No.
It's no Gankutsuo.
Well, Gankutsu was kind of hard to top at that point.
I was trying to think like a random Bang Zoom dub from the same time period.
Fair. Yeah, Higurashi is rather infamous from my understanding of being a poor dub. Now, I have seen the show. This is actually my first time watching the dub all the way through, actually. So I had never, the only other time I'd seen the dub was we watched, the first time I watched Higurashi, it was in a college anime club, and we put on the dub for like 5 minutes. Everybody freaked the fuck out because it sounded awful to all of us, and we were like, can we just go back to Japanese instead? And we watched the rest of the show in Japanese. But for a dub like this, without the connections of like B movie and the Bang Zoom philosophy, because I didn't think of those before or know about them. Without knowing that, the direction and writing is kind of subpar to me. There were times where it actually kind of worked and was okay, but there were other times where it didn't. Some of the times where it didn't, unfortunately, were moments where I thought characters could lose some of their complexity, because there's a lot of dark stuff going on in this show. Like, we have Yakuza ritual bullshit, we have
political people trying to basically sell the town out to be drowned to get the money from the dam.
There's that. We have child abuse, we have, what the fuck else?
Kidnapping, volcano guessing.
Murder.
Maybe an actual literal demon running around, it's unclear.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of up for interpretation by the end.
They keep that fucker up in the air the whole season.
Yeah,
Was it a demon, or are these people just crazy?
Both. No, yes.
I don't know, how canon is that bit at the end of the second storyline where Shion shows up again after being dead?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Well, I mean,
technically that's Meon, so you were incorrect on that one.
Yeah, we'll talk about the trouble with that in a bit. But it sounds like Lilac. It sounds like you're not super on board with the cheesier actions.
I'm kind of in the middle with it. While I was watching it, I was in the middle with it, and but with the words B movie being thrown around now, in my brain it's making sense now. It's like, actually it works as like a B movie kind of situation here. Though, to be fair, there are a couple weird moments as well. Like, for instance, I think Jet kind of brought this up, maybe, where occasionally words get repeated in the same sentence, mostly as like a vocal tick. I think for Rena and I think Rekka.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really weird and awkward. And then one line I wrote down, which bugged the ever-loving shit out of me. I don't know if you guys remember this. Are you D for something?
No, I don't.
I think it was when those punk kids either were confronting Keiichi or maybe Shion.
Oh yeah. In the
Are you D for something? I'm like, what the hell is this?
The story arc right before Satoshi shows up, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think I want to say it was during the second story, where Shion really kind of gets more introduced.
But yeah, they tried to have those gang members. One gang member's got a swastika haircut.
Yes, I didn't notice that until Noah sent a picture. I'm like, whoa, what?
This is the second anime I've watched this season that has a character with a swastika on their head. The second one was in Yu Yu Hakusho. There's one of the characters in one of the fighting tournaments who's just full on swastika on his forehead.
God damn it! All right, but anyways, there are moments where it really did kind of bug me in terms of the writing and the performances, because there are moments where cheesy turns into cringy for me, and there were quite a few moments where it went that far. But considering the direction and the route that this dub kind of ended up taking, all things considered, and also considering the dark, heavy material of the show, I mean, having this cheesy kind of B-movie kind of dub isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just, if you're someone like me who typically likes their straight up horror, which tends to be leaning more on the serious and dramatic, because that's how my brain works, it may not sit well with you. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here.
And that's a fair assessment, because some people like fidelity in their dubs. They like it to be a complete one-to-one translation. So there wasn't really a B-movie element in the voice acting in the Japanese, probably. So this
I don't believe there was. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but
because the Japanese have different archetypes that can kind of handle the level of scariness that this requires. Like, high-pitched voices by female characters is not uncommon. It's much more common in the Japanese than in American or in English voice actors. So I don't know how else you could have translated this with it being as faithful as some people would have wanted. But I do agree. That's worth noting. That's worth noting that it's an intentional choice by the directors in the dub to make it sound not like the Japanese in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think overall for me, this dub in terms of directing and writing is kind of in the middle. It's not as infamously bad as people make it out to be, in my opinion, but it's not. I think similar to what you guys are saying, it's not something to write home about by a long shot.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
You're right.
Okay.
It's not as bad as its reputation made it out to be. There are much worse dubs. Like, you want a bad English dub about a horror show with moe characters? Watch Elfen Lied. That is a legitimately bad dub.
Oh boy.
This is no Elfen Lied. This is a modicum better. This is about what you would get from this kind of show in 2006.
And there's our Halloween episode, Halloween 2019.
No, don't do it. No. God damn it. No, stop.
Too late.
Go back. Past Noah. Go back.
No. Hopefully, with any luck, our Halloween episode could be a show that's going to be by the Elfen Lied director.
Oh.
Wink, wink, not to be continued.
That's even better. So, I think, are we good to move on to our first set of characters?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to what the characters we're going to cover first are basically the reoccurring village adults that we see throughout, because Higurashi's story is very interesting because every 4 to 6 episodes, the timeline just resets itself.
It's almost like a video game.
Gee.
It's almost like it was based off a visual novel or something.
Oh. Anyway, so the first four characters we're gonna really cover is going to be 4 of the adults that we see the most often among these storylines. So the first 4 characters we're going to discuss, we have Detective Oishi, a detective who investigates the murders and disappearances in Hinamizawa,
Oyashiro's curse is very real.
Thank you.
He's coming for you, Lilac.
Thank you. We also have Kyosuke Ire, who is the local doctor. We have Mio Takano, who is a nurse at that local clinic. However, she's more than what she appears to be, as she keeps doing some research into the mysteries of Hinamizawa. And then we have Jiro Tomitake, who is a photographer from Tokyo, who will frequently visit Hinamizawa to take photographs and kind of just gets himself mixed up in a lot of stuff, i.e. he gets murdered a lot.
He's our obligatory victim.
He is our obligatory victim for this 5th year of the Cotton Drifting Festival. As for the individuals voicing these characters, as Detective Oishi, we have Joe Demuki, my bad, who has been in series such as Moribito, Guardian of a Spirit, Tweenie Witches, and Kite's Liberator, I found out.
Wow, you're really going for the obscure references there.
Yeah. As Irie, we have Dave Mallow, who has been in series such as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm trying to combine adventure and bizarre. It's not working.
JoJo's Adar Benzentures.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Directed by Wes Anderson.
God damn it. He was also in Scrap Princess, and Hardy would kill me if
you had to do this. You had
Apocalypse Zero.
You were going with the respectable stuff there, and then all of a sudden just
all
left
of a sudden Apocalypse Zero. This is how my brain works, boys and girls, because it's Halloween, everyone.
That's like lifting like an actor's legitimate roles and then finishing off the cast list with their first porn role.
I'm not going to say anything to that. As Mio Takano, we have Karen Strassman, who has been in series such as Hellsing Ultimate, Gonkutsuo, and Monster. And then as Jiro Tomitake, we have Kyle Hebert, who has been in Blue Exorcist, Danganronpa 3, and Terror from Mars. Amon, what are your thoughts on these 4 performances and these characters?
This is a nice little set of performances that they unfortunately have to work within the limitations that 2 of them basically exist to get murdered a lot. No, I'm sorry, only one does.
Yeah, one of them really does.
Sorry.
Let's face it, one of them really does.
One of them gets murdered
sorry,
a lot.
Kyle.
There is one arc, I think, where all 4 of these characters die.
No. I think only 3 of them do. I think Detective Oishi doesn't die.
Does not. You're right. He survives somehow.
Yeah, but Irie does. Takano and Jiro essentially are the 2 quote-unquote big victims of Orishiro's curse.
Because they're outsiders, and this whole show has a big fascination with outsiders are not to be trusted.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot in here about, the people in the country are going to go circle the wagons and keep out them other people.
We
but
don't take kindly to them photographer types around these parts.
Exactly. Yes, basically, there's some nice performances marred by the fact that some of them don't show up all that often, or they often have to kind of be like exposition dumps. But I thought they were nice roles. Start from the bottom. I'll start with Jurio. Kyle's nice as Jurio. He doesn't do much. He's pleasant enough, and then he kind of gets unceremoniously killed off every like 3 to 4 episodes.
Every time.
Every time.
You could say he's gone in a flash. Hey!
Damn it. Shut up, Noah.
Okay.
Noah,
I love you.
Noah, they already cast me as the Crypt Keeper. You can say all the puns you want.
Damn it! Don't give him that power.
Anyways,
oh god, I'm ashamed. I haven't really seen much of Tales from the Crypt, so I don't have many jokes ready.
Don't worry about it. Kyle's nice as Jiro. He doesn't have a lot to do for the most part, at least in this season. But like, he was nice when he was on screen. He gave the character what it needed. Same kind of thing with Dave as Dr. Irie. He's you at least buy him as a good doctor. Like he during the, I forget what arc it's in, but there's the one where Keiichi is like confessing what he's done, and he's like very calm and reassuring, and then
the bloody eye arc, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. He sells the character on what he needs to do. Who else? I did enjoy Karen as Takano a lot, although mostly for that one arc where she finds Keiichi walking home in the rain, and she is 100% up to something real bad.
Did you bury your body?
Yeah, she is 100% up to something real bad that at least in this season we don't quite find out about, and she did a very good job of selling the very calm pleasantness that we'd seen in her character in the other arcs, while also creeping in just enough menace to be like, did you bury the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought she only really has that one time to shine, I think, in the show, but I thought she played that very nicely. But I think, sort of by default, the standout in this section is Joe playing Detective Oishi, because he shows up the most. And weirdly enough, gets to actually play range, because Oishi is not portrayed the same way across the various arcs.
His personality tends to change.
Yeah, no,
which is interesting.
He's generally a good guy with, assuming Keiichi's like at the center of it, usually has a good relationship, but that's not always consistent. And I did like seeing him being able to switch from being like more of like a confidant and a partner for Keiichi, all the way to the other end of, I think again it's the Bloody Eye arc, where he is just a complete dick to everybody.
Oh yeah.
Just the most corrupt small town cop you've ever encountered. And I thought he did very well, like being able to, obviously he's not quite switching between those, but I thought he did a good job of making that all feel like the versions of the same character in these very different scenarios and circumstances. So I enjoyed him a lot. I know we're not going to talk about that character, but I also really enjoyed the very short arc where he's working with the detective from Tokyo who was
Oh, Patrick Seitz?
Yeah, that was Patrick Seitz. Okay,
That was Patrick Seitz.
Yeah, that was Patrick. I particularly enjoyed that little arc. I thought they in particular played off each other really well, and I don't know how you would like that arc, but I'm kind of sad we didn't get more of that interaction because I thought that was really fun for those that short 2 or 3 episode story arc. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Jet, how do you feel about these 4 performances?
Okay. So I'll start with Kyle Hibert since I don't have a whole ton to say here. Jiro isn't really in the show much, and he gets killed off pretty early, so Kyle doesn't really get a whole ton to do. But for the screen time he had, he was able to make Jiro, seem like a pretty regular dude, which more or less seemed to be his role here as a victim, so I appreciate that. Going into Oishi, I'm a little familiar with Joe DiMucci for his role in Hunter x Hunter, and his voice is distinctive enough that I could tell it was him as Oishi almost immediately. And I like that the voice he gives Oishi is, very gruff in a way that feels like, he's channeling the police chief from an old noir movie or, like Scruff McGruff or something. And
That's nice. I like that. That's great.
Talk about a jump in genres. Wow.
Damn, okay. I love that.
And the form of those two kind of fits the material, so it was fun to listen to. Of course, while he does play Oichi fairly by the book, you can also tell, there's just something a little shady about him. Which points into those moments where he's willing to use the kids to help solve the murders, or that one timeline where he's an antagonist for no real reason.
Yep.
But anyway, I liked Joe quite a bit, and I thought he was one of the more distinct voices in the dub. Likewise, I really enjoyed Karen Strassman as a clearly not at all shady nurse who does, perfectly normal things, like asking teenagers...
Clearly not at all evil.
She does perfectly normal things, like asking teenagers if they've buried dead bodies, or, doing a bunch of weird research. And while she's not known for it as much as some other actresses, Karen's really good at playing, femme fatale character types. And while I don't know if Takano quite qualifies, she does play her with a mix of sultriness, mystery, and just a little hint of danger, which makes her a delight to listen to. And definitely one of the stronger performances here. I kind of wish the dub had gotten to season 2 so I could have heard how she sounded there since Takano does a lot more in that season. But for what we got, I enjoyed her. And then lastly, for Dave Mallow as Dr. Irie, this one was kind of on the weaker end for me. I've heard Dave Mallow in other things, and while I do generally enjoy his work, his voice sounds kind of naturally dramatic, so I feel like you have to be very particular about where you cast him. And in this case, casting him as a young, mildly eccentric doctor didn't quite work for me since he sounded just a little bit too old for the character. And I felt like his voice maybe gave him a little bit more presence than he kind of needed to have. And it didn't help that some of his line reads sounded a little bit flat in a couple of areas, and while I blamed that a little bit more on the direction, it did kind of dampen things for me a bit. Okay. But for what it's worth, it was perfectly listenable, and while it's definitely not among my favorite performances in the show, it was, fine. So basically, 3 out of 4 get a pass for me.
Noah?
2 out of 4, that's practically 50%.
He said 3 out of 4.
I said 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4, that's practically 75%.
So 75.
Well, I guess I'm a little easier to please on that end, because all 4 of these characters are essential to the plot and all sound distinct enough from each other that I didn't have any qualms. Like, none of them made me want to switch over to the Japanese track, which is kind of the test you use to indicate, is this actor doing a good job? Where with Kyle Hebert, he doesn't have very much interesting content. Like, his most dynamic thing he does is convince some of the characters to go into the sacred tool shed that they're not supposed to go into.
The ritual tool shed.
The ritual tool shed, which I had to write down the phrase because I'm like, okay, tool sheds are very important, but not so much to the point that you would call them spiritual or holy or anything like that.
Or torture filled. But
in this case, considering what they've got in their torture shrines, then I guess you would want to keep everyone out of those tool sheds. So, when Kyle convinces some of the characters, let's go check out what's inside there. It's malicious, but it's very normal sounding. You kind of buy him as a normal guy from not around these parts. and they don't give him like an accent. Like nobody has like a hick accent really to make it sound like they're from like a backwater part of the country.
There's a couple of bit characters that do, but that's on the last arc.
Bit characters, yes, but we're just the ones we're talking about. No one's given much of an accent. So Kyle's role fit it perfectly fine. It was kind of interchangeable. Like I could easily see like any voice actor really fitting into this part, and you wouldn't really lose or gain very much from it. So I guess that in itself is kind of a knock against Kyle's acting, but again, it didn't make me want to change the sound at all. And I really didn't want to change the sound at all on Karen Strassman because, oh my god, this woman, so much fun to listen to. Each of the characters of these four has distinct voices and distinct ways of speaking. And like you said, Jet, she's got a bit of a sultry speaking voice to her. In not just the scene where she's driving Keiichi back after his murder spree, but also there's a part in the arc that's focused primarily on Shion and Meon, where she's kind of talking to Shion about researching the legends of the town and about the sinister things that have happened, and she gets really into it.
She kind of does the same thing with a flashback during the final arc with Rena.
Yeah. So her mentality is you don't know what she's up to, and that's good because this is a show where you don't know what's up with a couple of characters. This entire first season is entirely made up of questions that will get no answers. So Karen's deliciously sinister sounding voice, while still being kind of nice sounding, like not evil sounding, it's just sinister, is a lot of fun to listen to. So I like that a whole lot. Dave Mallow's doctor / baseball coach / good uncle character. He's like a relative of the Hojo family, I think, which is why.
No, he's not.
But he's just a friend of theirs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's what was it? Was it not Satoshi? It was.
Yeah, Satoshi was on the baseball team.
No, I mean Sadako. That's who it was. Like he laments the fact that Sadako is not, or has to spend time with her apparently awful aunt and uncle. And in doing so, he kind of, the voice that David gives him is sort of nice and not really all that menacing at all, which is flatter than I guess I would have wanted it to be. I would have liked a little more dynamic personality out of this, but we're supposed to believe that he's also a professional medical person who's, is serious enough and cares about other people. So I guess they wanted to just give him a nice guy voice, which is, what they did here. He does some slightly sinister things in that one arc with Keiichi where Keiichi goes a little crazy. I guess in that part I would have liked him to get a little more crazy in that part, but they wanted to keep him sounding like a nice professional, so I guess I can't fault him too much on that one. But I certainly can't fault Joe's performance as Detective Oishi, because that is the most fun part. He's just got this naturally enjoyable, gruff sound to him that is really fitting for the character. Not just because the character is always seen smoking, is always like a hard-nosed, middle-aged guy who's really close to pension. Like, he keeps mentioning that he is not throwing away his pension on you guys, but he's also like nose to the grindstone kind of voice that's a lot of fun to listen to, and we have no other voices like this in the entire cast. So it was good that they got that one voice that was naturally sounding like this, instead of trying to get like one of the younger actors to like put on a veneer of sounding older. It's like, no, let's get an actual middle-aged voice actor in here to sound middle-aged. It adds a nice color to his performance. All of them do their job. Some of them don't make it to the end, but in the end, they're good window dressing for the main characters who we'll talk about in a bit.
Good bloody window dressing. Okay. So, my quick thoughts. So, Jiro Tomitake, Kyle Hebert, he's there and then dies.
And then he's back. And then dies.
He's back and then dies.
And then he's back.
And then back again. And then he dies. Here's the thing with Jiro, and I kind of find it interesting you brought this up, Noah, because I actually have to disagree a little bit here. So, based on your thoughts and your impressions on the performance, you had a suspicion that Jiro kind of was like kind of deceiving the kids and trying to get them into the ritual tool shrine.
Not deceiving so much to the point that he does not respect the rules that everybody else in the town does, because he's not from the town.
Right, but it's true. But I think the motivations, because if we're taking Jiro and Miss Takano here, I think Jiro's reasons and motivations for going to the tool shrine might be at least, or probably more out of satisfy his own curiosity. More of like an innocent curiosity compared to Takano, who Takano I think is the sneakiest, evilest thing in the entire known universe. Where she has her ulterior motives with this research that she's been working on, that we kind of see bits and pieces of throughout the entire show and these various arcs. I don't really have much else in terms of Jiro, because Jiro is alive and then dead in like the same episode, like every like arc or so. But I do like it. He's Kyle's Jiro is unassuming. That's the word I'm looking for. Unassuming.
Okay.
Innocent, which I think works for this character, which makes for his death every single time a surprise. As for Dave Mallow and Dr. Irie, I'm so sorry to say this. This performance is so forgettable for me.
What performance?
Exactly. I almost fell into that trap. I have like no notes on Dave Mallow or Kyle Hibera's performances, but I barely remember Dave Mallow's performance, and I just finished the show yesterday.
Now, you mean you don't remember like what his acting was like, or you don't remember anything that Dr. Irie actually does in the show?
Well, mix of both.
Oh, that is a bit of a detriment.
That's a bit of a detriment here.
Yeah, the last thing you want to be is forgettable.
Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of both. I remember small bits and pieces. I remember that one scene where were they? Where it was after the water gun fight, and then they're at Angel Mort, and all of a sudden, Meon, Satoko, and Rekka are in these costumes serving food, and Dr. Irie just kind of jumps in like, "Hey, Satoko, I will take Satoko home with me. She is adorable," and then comedy ensues. Haha, teehee. This man might potentially be a bit of a pervert for children, which is kind of unsettling. But, yeah, the performance for Irie is unfortunately very forgettable, and I think it's partially because of the performance, but partially because of the character itself. As for Detective Oishi, I actually have to say I'm in the middle on this one. I'm not the biggest fan of the performance that Joe gave on this one, but I'm also like, it's not a weak performance either. I mean, sure, it's gruff and everything like that, but there are points where, for me, I wasn't quite sold on Joe as the detective. I think I specifically wrote that note around, what episode is this? Episode 10? So it's during the second arc. But what I do appreciate and what I enjoy a lot, and I'm glad you guys brought it up, was all those personality switches that he goes through every single arc. Those are a lot of fun. Like, all of a sudden becomes a complete dirtbag to the kids at one point. It's like, what the fuck? I forgot this was a thing. But for the most part, Joe's performance is kind of in the middle. I wasn't quite sold on him half the time, and other times I was like, okay, I can get behind this. I actually have to really give kudos to Karen Strassman. I think, for me, Karen Strassman is the standout here as Takano. Because you can tell very easily, probably after maybe one encounter with her, that she has something up her sleeve. Like, she's plotting something. Like, she has a very dark tone to her voice that can almost come off as a cunning, almost evil kind of tone, which is very interesting to me, compared to some of the other side characters. And it feels like Takano, there's a lot more to Takano than what we probably know about her in the show. But overall, I mean, for me, Karen's definitely the standout, and then Dave Mal, unfortunately, because of a mix of the performance and the character, Irie is just not that memorable to me, but I enjoy these 4 wonderful, wonderful characters. I think we're good to move on. Are we good to move on now?
Yep.
Yeah, we've killed these performances. I mean, we've absolutely murdered it here. I mean, we're done talking about them.
Stop digging your hole. Stop digging your hole. Stop digging your hole. Don't light it on fire.
No,
right?
Detective Oishi won't let me go until I get to the bottom of this. He told me to keep digging.
All right, so we got a bunch of little girls to talk about before we get to the big kahuna here. So many little girls, unfortunately.
As you do in an anime.
So we're gonna we were considering leaving these 2 separate, but we're gonna put these 2 together instead, because they are best friends. They also live with each other.
They would die for each other.
Honestly, they probably would. Dang it.
Look, every one thing comes up to death eventually in the show. We won't tell you how or where.
Fucking die.
Wait, I'm pretty sure. Wait, doesn't Oishi live through every arc?
I think Oishi's the only character that probably lives every single arc.
At least in the first season. I don't know. Maybe he dies at the end of all of the seasons 2 arcs. I don't know.
No, but the point, I'm having flashbacks now. I'm having King's Game flashbacks because everybody fucking dies.
We do not speak of the King's Game episode, or not the episode, but we don't talk of that show, Lilac.
Too late. It already happened. Anyway, Rika Furuta and Satoko Hojo. These 2 are the youngest of the major characters of the series. Rika is part of a
shrine family.
One of the big 3 families of Hinamizawa. Her family in particular, though, they are the priests or protectors of the shrine, local shrine there. With Rika being an orphan after her parents end up murdered as part of the Oyashiro curse. I believe it was 2 years prior to the start of the series, if I'm right. And she's the only living heir left of the Furude family, and possibly possessed by a demon. Possibly.
She's possessed by the demon of cats. Cat demons.
Meow. There's something very much deeper going on with her that's never fully explored in the first season. As for Satoko Hojo, she is another one of the younger characters in the show. She, throughout the entirety of the show, she is deemed as the cursed child. Because her, the second year, so the second year of the Cotton Drifting Festival and the Orishiro curse problem, her parents end up dying after falling off of a cliff. And then the 4th year, which is the year prior to present day, her aunt ends up dead, and then her older brother Satoshi ends up disappearing. So she, for all intents and purposes, is an orphan as well. She also, for the longest time, was dealing with abuse from her aunt and uncle. But she, in the majority of the show, she and Rika do live together and are the bestest of friends. And Rika, between the 2 of them, Rika is the cute moe character versus Satoko, who is it's a mix of like tsundere and also trying to grow up too fast kind of deal, if that makes sense.
I mean, she's kind of got the that infantile appeal to her, where it's a character that you need to protect, which is, of course, the entire moe phenomenon. I want to protect this character. Pretty
much. All right, so the 2 individuals voicing these characters as Rika Furude, we have Miss Reba West, who has been in series such as Bottle Fairy, Robotech, and Gatekeepers 21. As for Satoko, we have Minx Lee, who has been in series such as Rosen Maiden, Rekka 7, and Excel World.
I swear you're just making up names at this point. You're making up shows at this point.
I'm not making up shows at this point. These are legit. Amon, how do you feel about Reba? How do you feel about Reba Mix's performances here?
Robotech?
Yes.
I know. That doesn't even sound real. I think she's just making that one up.
Robotech.
I've watched Robotech. It's a real show.
Are you sure?
Robotech, aka Super Dimension Fortress Macross, which she is the exact same character.
Dude, I don't know who, but somebody was syndicating that in New England when I was a kid. I definitely saw like a good 10-episode stretch of that when I was young. Anyways, yeah, I don't know who it was either. Anywho,
no one knows who it was.
So, as I said at the top of the show, the Moe cute voices in English, especially this time, are a little off and on, and here we have a couple of examples of that. I'll start with the one who has less of it. Poor Sadako, who doesn't do a single bad thing in 26 episodes.
No!
And gets nothing but misery for it.
No, you would cross a bridge for her.
She is the most tormented child. She's the most tormented child.
No, I'm glad you brought up the, like, I want to protect them aspect of Moe characters. Just like, yeah, I fucking do. What did this girl do to deserve all this? Jesus Christ.
You were born.
Yeah, God damn it.
Poor Sadako. I thought Minx did a reasonably nice job with Sadako. Like, you spend at least a couple of the storylines mostly just feeling bad for Sadako because she just wants to be a happy child. And the universe said no.
Please, sir, may I have May I have some more?
Pretty much. She's like generally pretty fine when it comes to kind of like Sadako just be, during the comedy bits where she gets to just be a child. But I do think she does stand out during the parts where Sadako, like, she really has to emote on how Sadako is just not having a fun time with things these days. Her brother vanished. She has to live with her shitty, abusive uncle. In some versions, she gets to watch one of her friends either apparently murder a friend of hers or murder her. But I do think she sells me on the character pretty well. Like, I think she is able to get the emotions across even when she's doing kind of the... I mean, she's not as moe as some of the other characters in this show, but she goes a little bit there, but I do think she's able to emote through that pretty effectively. There's never, like, anytime, like, bad things are happening to Sadako, I was never not feeling for her. She's, she did well on nailing that aspect of empathy, of, like, this is just some kid who didn't ask for any of this. I would really rather not deal with it. It was a little heartbreaking sometimes, especially in the... I forget the name of it, but the one that's mostly about Shion. That one in particular was a good performance and also a really upsetting scene where she kicks it.
Nice.
Yeah. I did enjoy her performance. Rebop a little more... Like, she does... Like, Rika does a lot of the moe voice part because she's supposed to be, like... What is she, like, 8? How old is she?
Yeah,
I think around that.
I think however old Sadako is.
Alright.
Which is like probably around 7-8 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So she's like, she does the moe thing, and she's always supposed to be a really little kid anyways. And I thought, like, she did that. Like, it was fine. It had the kind of flaws we were talking about at the top of the show. But I did really like when, like, weird shit starts happening to Rika and she would just drop down to a normal-ass adult woman voice. I actually thought that worked legitimately really well just because of the sharp contrast between, like, the really high-pitched, cutesy kid voice she'd use, and then it's like, something is talking through me, and you don't know what it is, but you should shut up and pay attention because it's going to be important. Like, I do think that contrast worked really well. I don't know if like I said, I can't remember if I've seen this in Japanese, so I don't recall if they pulled that trick there as well. But whether that was taken from there, an invention of the dub, I did really enjoy that. I thought that was very effective. And I thought it worked very well. Like, I thought especially in those moments, given that a lot of them is often just her kind of monologuing or giving a speech about something, I thought she pulled those. Those were really good in my opinion. I thought she played them very well, and I thought she did a good job. She did a good job allowing the character to be enthralling and not boring when she was just kind of monologuing something vague or ominous, which I enjoyed a lot. I thought at least those scenes were often some of the stronger dialogue parts in the episodes they show up in.
Okay.
Yeah, so like these have their flaws, but I do think the actors were able to do good stuff with what they were given regardless.
Okay. Jet.
Okay, so I'll start with Rika. I'm kind of half and half on Rika. She sounded like a little rough in the beginning, but especially when it comes to doing the whole boy-girl voice thing. But I thought she got better, with time, and was eventually able to make it sound relatively smooth, even if it didn't get quite as natural as I would have liked. However, I dug it a lot better when we got to see hints of Rika's hidden personality, and like Amon was saying, the deeper tone when we got a lot of those moments. And I think that's probably closer to what her natural voice sounds like, so I guess that worked better. And, definitely a lot better than when she was playing up the whole cutesy persona. But the big standout moment for me was probably when she was fighting off Shion the Psycho, and the performance he... Yeah, and the performance he managed to give off when, she just decided, screw it, and, off herself was honestly a lot scarier than Shion attacking her in the first place.
Yeah. Because here, small context. So, the scene that Jeff specifically is referring to here, the opening for the second arc of the show is just that small bit where Rika decides to take the knife and stab her neck with it, and you don't fucking know why. And it's like, what the shit? And then we find out in, the third or fourth arc at that point, what this real story is for it. It's kind of insane. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, and even then, they still don't give you the full context. I mean, you can maybe guess it, but
you might be able to get some kind of idea, but yeah, you don't know the full context.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was pretty good, and I also really enjoyed her narration for the next episode previews.
I was about to say that's her, isn't it? I picked up on it partway through. That was Rika.
Yeah. But there was one where I couldn't tell if it was Rika or Rena, but yeah, it was definitely Rika, my bad. But anyway, I really enjoyed her narration during the next episode previews because there wasn't too much in the show that felt genuinely creepy to me, but her delivery for those actually gave me some chills every now and then. It kind of makes me wish Season 2 had gotten dubbed since Rika plays a much bigger role in that season, but for what we got here, it was pretty okay. And, this performance had its flaws, but I enjoyed it for the most part. It was fine. And, so as for, Mix and Sadako, so out of all the girls here, I think she sounded the most convincing when it came to doing the whole cutesy boy-girl voice thing. I don't know if she quite nailed down all the mannerisms, since I recall Sadako Seiyu having, a pretty unique voice. But I can definitely buy that she was a child. And it's good, of course, because Sadako is a child, and a very, very, very troubled child.
Oh God, please someone save this child.
So while the execution is a little overly dramatic and melodramatic in some places, I do appreciate that her arc is taken the most seriously, considering it centers around child abuse. And I really got into the performance during that moment in her arc where she's in the classroom having a sudden breakdown.
Yeah.
And the level of pain she was in, that really kind of tugged my heartstrings a little bit. And I also liked her delivery during Shion's arc, where she's having some quality torture time with Shion.
Oh God! Stab time.
Happy, joy, happy, joy.
Stab.
Yeah. And I really like how, she manages to acknowledge that maybe she leaned a little bit too much on her brother, while also calling out how pathetic of a person Shion is. And the way Minx was able to make both halves of that sound very sincere was honestly pretty satisfying. I mean, outside of those moments, she sounded kind of a little rough, which is why I can't say I was, super impressed by this. But she was definitely one of the stronger performances in the main cast to me.
Alright, Noah, how do you feel about these performances?
Well, I'd just like to confess that I'm really disappointed that they didn't get actual child actors for this role. What with this being such a family-friendly kind of anime, why didn't they get real 8-year-olds to voice Rika and Sadako?
Because having 8-year-olds voice characters being maimed and abused and killed is a great idea, Noah.
They got a real little kid to play the kid from Grave of the Fireflies.
But they're not being tortured, are they?
I mean,
yeah.
Aaron Dismuke was 8 when he did Fullmetal Alchemist.
And that's pretty torturous.
Yeah, look at him now.
There. Look at him now. Oh no! What are you trying to say?
One more for the bus. For the bus.
Oh no! I'm sorry, Aaron. We love you.
Look, we do love you. You're great. I'm just joking.
You're a great human being.
Wait.
Anyway, Noah.
Yeah. So, obviously, in the situation of not casting actual children to voice children in this one, they have the conundrum of how to do the voices in this one, because the moe voice that both Sadako and Rika pull off in the Japanese is not really an archetype that we have in America. There's just not an equivalent to it. So it sounds a bit forced when both Reba and Minx have to do their cutesier voices. Rika in particular, like, especially during the time-wasting arc, she, like, has, like, this, you know, cat sound that she makes whenever she's hanging out with the detective that comes from Tokyo that's supposed to be cute, but, you know, it's just, it kind of depends on how much you can stomach. It's not really, like, I can't think of a better way to have done that in English. It's just kind of something that you either have it or you don't. And I think like maybe 1% of English voice actors that we've heard so far can actually pull it off convincingly. So again, Carver's kind of stacked against Reba in that regards. But on the plus side, Rika's role is supposed to be a mix of between both the cutesier little girl and also the last survivor of the Furade family. So she has to be serious sounding, like especially when she confronts Shion about like Orishiro's curse isn't about hurting people, you know, it's, if you're just sorry about it, then that's all you need. You don't need to distinguish yourself. What's wrong with you? So Reba's performance throughout the whole thing is honestly a lot of fun to listen to for the kind of English role that they're going for, because it's distinct from all the other female voices, and it's dramatic where it needs to be, especially in the scenes where she kind of doesn't survive any longer. And I think it hits that melodramatic point just well enough without being unbelievable. Like, unbelievable in the sense that I do not believe this was happening. Especially like in the arc where Keiichi sneaks into the tool shed of doom, and she's kind of concerned about breaking the rules. Like, it's obviously, she's very passionate about it, and I appreciate that Reba's acting never gets so unbelievable to the point that I don't enjoy listening to it. Like, again, I didn't want to switch the audio tracks in this one at all. I understand that Rika's got more of a bigger role in the second season. For this one right here, because it's distinct from the other voices, and because she it just sounds like she's having fun with it, I can recommend this enough for people who are more used to English voices. And same thing with Minx's performance as Sadako. It sounds the lesser of the cutesier, because she doesn't try to tip into the over-the-top voice too much. She just keeps a consistent falsetto voice throughout that is really supposed to be reminiscent of a little sister character, like, you know, the kind that you feel bad for, and you're like, I just want to put her in my pocket and take her home with me. Whatever happened? What did she ever do to deserve all of this? But there are parts where she gets serious, and she was pretty well directed on those parts. Like the scene where she's punishing herself for everything bad that happened by like not drowning herself, but she's like been in the hot tub for like what? She's trying to count to 1,000 or something like that, and she kind of
the bathtub, yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of self-punishing herself. Those are the level of melodramatic points that kind of makes the show enjoyable to listen to. Again, if they try to go for a more dramatic role, like a believably dramatic voice, where she was like not over the top at some points, then I don't think it would be nearly as enjoyable. And this is a show that has a lot of, I'm not going to call them plot holes, but a lot of contrivances to try to get things as bad as they need to be. Like, one bad thing happens to someone, and like, instantly, like, just because Meon didn't get the doll in one scene, all of a sudden she's a psychopathic killer. How did that happen? Or in Sadako's case, one character got rid of her brother, and like, I'm pushing you off of a bridge now. How did that happen? However, these two, their acting is good, and I guess I'm going to say that I can't really think of a better way I would have done this. You know, if you're going to get one chance to be cheesy and melodramatic and cutesy moe voices that also happen to be psychopathic killers, this is as far as you go.
I'll start with Satoko because this is one of the few performances I actually kind of enjoyed quite a bit. From the show, it wasn't in the middle of the road. It's leaning more towards, I actually kind of like this. Because she fit the archetype that Satoko is actually very well. Like this child who's trying to be mature and all grown up, thinking she's all grown up. Like, look at me, I can make my own dinner. I can take care of myself. Ha 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 ha, that kind of thing. And I think for Minx Lee, it actually works rather well for her. And then when those moments we have where Satoko essentially breaks as well, with the abuse going on and all this other fun stuff she gets to deal with, I actually honestly really enjoyed that as well, because you got to see, if we hadn't known all that stuff about her by the time before we got to the arc where Satoko is one of the main presences in the storyline, you wouldn't be able to tell at first that, hey, this kid is actually like has a bunch of walls built up, has some trust issues. She has some trust issues. She has some what's the correct way to put this? It's mostly trust issues, if anything. She has this wall built up where she's trying to protect herself from everything that's going on around her. And it wouldn't be present at first without going into the story of her past and the abuse that she has gone through and all this other stuff. So I think Minx Lee performs those sides of this character, of Satoko's character, pretty well. Rika and Reba. So there are 3 characters where I have an issue with the performances. Rika is one of them. Most of it comes down to the voice, to me, not matching very well with the character design.
The character design, okay.
Yep. Rika's is the biggest contender of this, because this is a little girl. And there are times where Reba makes Rika sound older than she really should be. Granted, this is through at least a good chunk of the earlier parts of the show. Because, however, the thing we got to remember and put in mind here are those moments where Reba does suddenly take on an omnipresent tone to her voice, if that makes sense, because of what seems to be like she's possessed by something, or has a split personality, or knows more than what she's leading us to believe about the entire situation. Because remember, during that episode with Patrick Seitz, with Officer Patrick Seitz going on here.
The time-wasting arc.
Yes, time-wasting arc, where he meets Rika and they stand and look out at everything. It's towards the end of it. Rika explains to him like all of the deaths in order. She basically has like this premonition about these occurring deaths, including her own. And that's that's a very interesting plot point, never addressed again outside of that episode. That Rika, I guess, is very in tune with Orishiro, to the point where she can make these predictions and she knows exactly who's gonna die, including herself, and she knows a lot more about this whole time loop problem than what is being led to believe. Which, with the omnipresent tone that Rika does display, I think Reba does very well with that. It's the cute moe part with that tone of voice matching the character design. That's where the majority of my critique comes from on this one. But otherwise than that, I honestly, it came into its own. It was definitely a lot smoother by the end of the show. And I am very disappointed and sad that we probably won't ever see a sequel season for the dub. Only just to kind of hear the progression. Because I haven't seen Higurashi Kai or Rei either. And I'm interested in the progression of Rika as a character and knowing more about her.
If you're curious, they literally explain what Rika's deal is in the very first episode of season 2.
Oh, wonderful. Now I know what I'm going to watch on my next days off.
Yeah.
Sweet. I watched that for Halloween. Hell yeah! I'm off on Halloween. This is great.
Nice.
But yeah, bottom line, I enjoyed Minxley as Sakatiko, and Reba was kind of iffy as Rika, more leaning on the not so good kind, but mostly because of the character design involved. We ready to move on?
Oh boy.
Oh, yay!
Oh boy.
Are we ready to talk about some shocking characters?
Some nail-biting characters here.
Just
We'll just hit the nail on the head with this one. Ready, guys?
ugh.
All right. So we have the twins. The twins of this series. We have Meon and Shion Sonozaki. They are part of the Sonozaki family, which is one of the 3 big families of Hinamizawa, with Meon as the older sister and the heir apparent to the family. And Shion, because if I remember correctly, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, typically if twins are born, it's a rule in the Sonozaki house to murder the younger twin.
Yep.
There's no use for him.
Choke it before their first bath. That is
I believe,
Yes.
I
great
believe the
family, huh?
I believe the explanation given is to make lines of succession easier because there's no concern about, who gets to be next.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically.
So, charming.
Yeah,
That's,
charming. Child
The,
murder, everyone.
the original Planned Parenthood.
Oh my
Oh.
god.
Ooh, that's
Get
bad.
the fuck out. That is
Aren't you,
horrendous. Noah.
aren't you the actual parent here? You should feel ashamed.
I am
should be
ashamed.
very
but
ashamed.
this is Halloween. We're allowed to be a little taboo here. Give yourself over
Not
to
in that
absolute
regard,
pleasure.
no. Not in
But-
that regard, we're not.
Speaking as the parent in the group, if you have twins, do not ever give them names that rhyme with each other. That's just going to make their lives difficult. That's going to make everyone's lives difficult.
I mean, also don't murder one of them in order to make the line of succession clear. But
Well, that too. But more importantly, don't give them rhyming
more
names or
importantly, don't
illiterate
make them
names. Make them let them have their own separate identities, please.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus. But yeah, I think the majority of the arcs that we see with the first season, they do center around Meon and Shion in some way. 2 out of like the 4 or 5 arcs definitely do. And dear sweet lord, are these bitches crazy? Mostly Shion, actually.
No, only one of them is.
Yeah, technically it's just Shion. We find
Technically,
out.
it's just Shion. Which, by the
no-
way, if you're curious about how to tell the two of them apart, I believe it's Shion who has the ponytail and Meon who has the long hair. Or did I get the two mixed
Incorrect.
up?
You swap it.
Okay.
Meon has the ponytail, not Shion.
Meon we see first, who has the ponytail.
Correct. Yeah, we mostly find out that Shion is the crazy fucking bitch in the entire damn show. Well, one of the crazy fucking bitches. The other one we'll talk about shortly. But the individual playing both of the twins is Miss Kelly Cassidy. She's pulling double duty and playing both Meon and Shion. She has been in series such as Ergo Proxy, Planetes, and Eureka 7. Amon, how do you feel about Kelly Cassidy as the lovely, lovely Sonozaki twins?
I generally liked Kelly Cassidy. I thought I should note I don't quite like any of the characters in Higurashi. It's not that kind of a show.
That's
Definitely
good.
not.
We're glad that you don't like any of these characters. You're not supposed to like them.
Indeed. But of the characters here, I do have a favorite in the sense of I find them the most interesting. Which is mostly bound to the fact that my favorite part of the first season is definitely the eye-opening chapter, because I find Shion's ordeal to be fascinating and awful, and I love
Yep.
watching it. And consequently, I like Kelly's performance a lot. Watching Shion go from just trying to be like, I don't want to be in this stupid school, I don't care about any of this dumb bullshit that you find so important. I don't like Meon could be the priestess. I don't care. I want to actually see my sister once in a while. Okay, and she starts off so nice and relatable, and you get to just watch as she descends into madness because of all the like awful, strange backwater like politics that her family is wrapped up in.
look,
bitch is crazy.
Yeah, even for the level of crazy in the family politics, which I agree is crazy, even considering that, I think she goes just a little too far, a little too quickly. This escalates.
You're telling me.
I mean, this definitely escalates.
It really does. It goes from the level of, I didn't get the doll. Guess I gotta kill everybody now.
No.
I feel like
you're talking about the wrong twin, though.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like she at one point, says to Keiichi, says, if you had just given Meon the doll, none of this would have happened. And we're like, wow, that's one hell of a butterfly effect.
In fairness, that's sort of, I feel like that's more the straw off of a lot of idiocy. But anyways, no, I really enjoy Kelly's performance. I think that in particular is the standout for me. Like, I think she does a wonderful job of building up and portraying that descent into madness, where she just gets like, she just cannot take this anymore, and now she ends up like, murdering several people in a basement, and like accidentally killing her grandmother with a taser. As you do. As you do. I liked her performance a lot. She sold a lot of the show is like people being able to do both the normal everyday part of the character and also the much more amped up, over the top, melodramatic version. And I thought she was one of the highlights. I particularly like the bit where you initially think it's Meon, it's actually Shion, where Keiichi's trying to get into Rika's house, and she just flips out while holding the ladder.
Yep.
Which also has some of Studio Dean's
fantastic
best animation in the show.
Best as in questionable.
It is some of the best example of Dean's inability to stay on model.
Yeah, I feel like that was probably intentional, given who the director is, but
I think it probably was, but given that Dean can be a little shaky, it's always a little hard to tell sometimes. But I think you're right. I suspect that was a deliberate choice. But yeah, she was really good. I don't think she did a lot to try and like. I couldn't tell she was doing a lot to particularly distinguish Meon and Shion, but given that a lot of the show,
I think she did, but I'll say that one.
No, that's fair. And part of its reason I'm not sure is that I feel like at least a couple of these arcs are hinging on you, the audience's inability to tell who is who. I think during the arcs where like they're more distinct, it's less about like Shion running around pretending to be Meon. I think they are, you can tell them apart a little more easily. But I think particularly in those ones, they kind of meld together because that's kind of the point. I enjoyed her performance a lot. I thought she was a lot of fun to watch, and she helped make one of my favorite parts of the show, so I appreciate that too.
Okay, Jet, how do you feel about Kelly Cassidy?
Okay, alright, so I know I can't really talk about other things this actress has done because we generally try to respect usabilities on this show, but what I can say in that respect is that I sure as heck wouldn't want Shion to be my Valentine.
God damn it! That's the stupid joke you went with. God damn it!
You've been sitting on that joke for 2 hours now, haven't you?
Exactly.
He's been sitting on this joke since the day we decided to do this damn episode.
But before we get to her, let's talk about Meon, since she's pretty simple. Meon comes off as kind of a tomboy, and while Kelly has a little bit of trouble finding the right level of energy to give her in the beginning, she's eventually able to make Meon sound, pretty rambunctious and peppy, which definitely helped in making Meon feel more or less her age. Like a lot of the cast, though, Meon seems to have a hidden side to her, since, she belongs to the village equivalent of the Yakuza family. And Kelly was able to handle that persona of, professionalism pretty well. Whenever it came time for Mia to take charge and take care of business for the family. And we're also tricked into thinking Mia has a more psychotic side to her. But as it turns out, she's fairly normal, by this show's standards. And all the crazy went to her sister Shion. Shion is a real piece of work, and in a cast comprised of mostly not-so-nice people, her antics here easily make her the worst of the bunch for me. So to put things into perspective, over the course of her arc, she tortures and kills her uncle, tortures and kills her grandma, tortures and kills a little girl, breaks her sister's mind before killing her, and tries to kill another little girl.
And why does she do all this?
Okay, so while
because she's in love with a boy.
That's it.
Yep.
Because of love.
Love is the ultimate evil, boys and girls. Never fall in love.
Never,
Oh,
don't.
oh.
It's not worth it.
I should point out she doesn't actually torture and kill her grandmother. She just kills her and then desecrates her corpse.
This is true.
Because the show's classy like that.
Well, you know what they say, whips and chains may break my bones. But wait, I forget how that line goes.
She's trying to quote Rihanna. Oh no. It's not
Anyways.
working for Noah right now. S&M, boys and girls.
Back on topic, I guess. So while the show does paint a pretty clear picture of how she ends up transforming into a monster, and I mostly understand her, it was completely impossible for me to sympathize with her, and it didn't help that, even though I know she's a teenager and teenagers crush pretty hard, the time from innocent teen crush to full-on psychotic yandere was way too fast to make me feel anything but hate for the stuff she does. Like, girl, seriously, he talked to you like maybe 3 times in the whole show. I don't think he was that into you.
Oh, come on. Every anime romance is escalated to like 3 lines, and all of a sudden, we're gonna get married.
It was love at first sight, Jet. How could you not tell?
It was an
love
eye-opener.
at first sight. God damn it.
So needless to say, by the time she kicked the bucket, I was pretty happy. But anyway, while Shion is pretty terrible, Kelly's performance was not. And between her and Meon, I feel like she played Shion a lot better. I'll admit that in the earlier episodes, I thought the way she tried to play Shion off as, shy and cute felt a little fake compared to how she played Meon. As it turns out, a lot of Shion's persona was fake at that time, so that arguably worked to her advantage. Especially when you see what lies under the mask, Kelly really ramps it up. Like, the level of ham on display certainly lended itself well to the yandere archetype Shion represents, and while you can tell how much fun Kelly was having behind the booth with that, and she also managed to sell the idea that Shion is kind of a broken mess underneath it all. And while again, I don't sympathize with Shion literally at all, it did a lot in helping me to understand her. And so, at any rate, this was definitely my favorite performance among the female cast, bar none. And while it's not quite enough to elevate the dub as a whole, I definitely appreciate it all the same. Good stuff.
Alright, Noah, how do you feel about Kelly?
Well, you mentioned that Kelly tried to, at some point, distinguish Meon and Shion so that we knew the difference between the two. I don't really think so. There's a long, proud history of anime casting twins and English dubs deciding to have different voices to try to, distinguish the two of them apart, like Ouran High School Host Club or Lucky Star. This show decided not to do that. I think it was the same in the Japanese, too. They had the same seiyuu voice, both the twins. And I understand that, yes, that was supposed to be part of the story, was to confuse you as to which one was which, so that the full-on revelation about which one is actually crazy came out as more surprising. But I didn't really think that it aided in it. Like, I would have appreciated having like slightly distinct sounding voices, and if I had to go back in time, I think that's something that I would have tried to have changed myself. But this is what they went with, and Kelly's performance is honestly a lot of fun to listen to. Like, I'm not just talking about the crazy parts, but like even in the earlier parts of each arc where it's disguising itself as a slice of life school drama where they're having a ton of fun, and she's having all of the fun punishing Keiichi because he like loses the game, or they're in I forget, they're in some sort of like card tournament or something, and they're trying to win like prizes or something like that. She just sounds like she's having a lot of fun trying to be a normal country bumpkin kind of character, and that in itself, like, it's masked what's about to come pretty good if you didn't already know that things were about to get fucked up. But yeah, that's something I think needs to be acknowledged as doing well, that Kelly did the quote-unquote normal parts of the show pretty well too. Like it was probably the role that was up to the standards of what we are used to in 2018 dubbing, if not just a little over the top. But then we get really over the top, and we get scenes where she's, stabbing syringes into people, and forcing people to claw their throats out, and tossing children down giant holes, and, putting aside that the actual acting itself requires this to be over the top, even then I think Kelly turned in something that even the director did not expect. She probably, took a step back from the booth and said, "Whoa, are you okay, Kelly? You sound like you've had practice doing stuff like this." So and all of that, I have to back up what you guys said about Kelly's performance on this one. This was exactly the way to go with portraying both Meon's kindness and Shion's flip into absolute crazy. It's the part where I can easily say like make a highlight reel out of this, and that's like the main appeal of the show. And it kind of helps that her main arc takes up at the halfway point we start up her arc, and it takes up like 6 episodes, I think, and they're probably the strongest arc of the whole thing. It escalates.
It's definitely the longest arc of the show.
And for a good reason, because it's very captivating to watch. Even if I'll agree with you that the small amount of time spent with Satoshi, and she gets a crush on him, and then when he's gone, like that was enough for her to absolutely kill everybody for. Not so sure that was exactly believable, but that's okay, because we don't watch Higurashi for believable. We watch Higurashi for fun murder time. And boy, do we get it.
For fun torture murder time.
All of that. And I feel like her character is supposed to be commentary of some sort. Like, she is raised to believe that torturing people who sin is acceptable. Not just acceptable, but required. Whereas you contrast that with something like the way that Rika was talking to her, that no, you don't have to punish yourself. You don't have to be punished when you do something wrong. Just say you're sorry and move on.
You don't have to distinguish yourself. There's your key word.
And so I don't know if the game and the show itself were trying to make social commentary about a problem that they had in 1980s Japan, but if they did, I sincerely hope that things are a little bit better now, hopefully. I mean, this is some Christian evangelical shit going on here.
It reminded me a little bit of how, like, if you read, like, Stephen King novels, it's very Stephen King's from small town Maine, and he kind of thinks small town Maine sucks.
Yeah.
Because, like, everyone's up in their business all the time, and it's just kind of awful.
This
reminded me of that a lot.
What's very, very depressing as someone who grew up in small town Maine, it's very fucking true.
So it's not even just Japan. Like, this could be to any backwater, bumpkin part of the world.
This felt very true to a lot of stories about how living in like rural, isolated backwaters is kind of shitty and often not really all that fun.
Absolutely true.
Particularly if you're not on the inside with the power people in the area, like the Hojo family is.
Yeah, because you're just.
You're dead. Yep.
You're not making it to the sequel.
Nope.
Nope.
Sorry.
Whoops-a-daisy.
So Kelly, I hope that whatever you're doing out there, that you've gotten the help that you need.
I think I had 3 key thoughts I was gonna say. I forgot one of them already. So first things first. Damn, Kelly.
I'm thinking of that meme now. Damn, Daniel. Except it's Lilac going, damn, Kelly.
Damn, Daniel. Damn, Kelly. Oh, what was the fucking shoes he was talking about? The stupid meme. Never mind. I will get stuck on it if for like 20 minutes if I don't move on, and then we'll be here all night. Anyway, so yeah, holy shit, mother god, what the fuck? First thought. Second, I'm concerned that Kelly didn't develop split personality after this. Not just because she had to play twins, but because she had to play one of those twins as fucking psychotic. And the third other big point for me really is that, bar none, this is my favorite performance in the show. Bar none. Like, it not only sounds, for both Meon and Shion, given the characteristics and the storylines for the twins here, it not only sounds the most natural, that fits very well with the character designs. It's also is a performances, I should say, that are complex enough to make it very believable to me, compared to some of the other characters in the show and some of the other performances we hear in the show. This is the most believable performance. Clearly the most fun that Kelly probably ever fucking had in this entire show, like ever probably, or one of the most fun, exciting things for her. But what else? Like, she pulls off the crazy psychotic very, very well. Like, it's interesting when you go and watch the show, because the second arc in the show is the one where Meon, quote unquote, is the most prevalent character, and she's seen as the murderer. And it seems very clear that it is Meon. Then you skip a couple arcs later where we find out this whole time it's been Shion, and it hasn't been Meon at all.
Well, just a question on the mechanics of this. There are 6 different arcs in the first season. Some of them share similar events, but I didn't think that any of them were supposed to be like the same story. I thought they were supposed to be their own self-contained arcs, weren't they?
No, I think like bits and pieces of the arcs come together to help you get an idea of the overall mystery. But
yeah, there are bits and pieces of the story that do kind of line up together, but the 2 arcs that really link together as 2 sides of the same story are the 2 involving the twins.
Yeah.
Okay, that's true, yeah, because
That's
they actually
the
recycle
one
some of the
story.
animation.
Yeah,
Yep.
from what I could suss out, those 2 specifically take place at the same time, and I assume the time-killing one is a general prequel to all of them. Beyond that, I don't think all of them can't exist in the same continuity, anyways, and I don't think you're supposed to read it like that.
Right.
See, that's what I was concerned. Yeah, I was thrown off by, because like they can't all exist in the same continuity. I was getting Cloud Atlas vibes. I'm like, wait, is it like every other one is fits inside each other one, or it's like does one start and finish?
As far as I can tell, because some bits and pieces or plot elements of each of these stories do link together.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, the storyline in the beginning somehow pops up again at the end of the show when Keiichi remembers the shit that he pulled.
Yeah, I think it's just remembered as, oh, this was a bad ending.
Exactly. Like, all of a sudden, like, what the fuck?
There are no good endings.
But the one story that actually links, that's like 2 separate arcs that actually link together, are the 2 involving the twins.
Yeah.
It's just different sides of the same story, what it comes down to on that one. Because I think one side basically is told from the point of view of Keiichi, the other side is Shion. If I'm correct.
It's so hard to tell.
It is hard to tell, but that's the one story arc that actually has some kind of cohesive, where most of the mysteries are solved in terms of that one storyline. Like, it makes sense. That's the one that actually has the most conclusion to it, out of all of the storylines. And in the beginning, Kelly was the only one that was a half-decent performance, but then, like, the performance really, really grew on me throughout the whole show, because it sounded the most natural, as well as the most psychotic. Naturally psychotic, I should say. Natural in terms of Meon, naturally psychotic in terms of Shion. If that makes sense to you.
None of this show makes sense.
I mean, true, but still. I mean, there are a lot of elements for Kelly to play with. There's the fact that she has to play twins. There's the fact that we're dealing with Yakuza ritual bullshit. We're dealing with a psychotic twin sister. Who just wants to have her love returned to her, even though he probably actually doesn't really like her. Let's face it, Satoshi probably didn't like her. There's a lot of complexities with these 2 characters, and the fact that Kelly was able to pull these off very, very well, I enjoyed very well, and make it as very natural sounding. I enjoyed every second of it, and definitely Kelly as the twins is my favorite performance of the entire show. We think we're good to move on?
Yeah.
I've still got at least 1 fingernail left. Let's move on.
Oh, God. You're only supposed to do 3. You weren't supposed to do 4.
You didn't tell me to stop.
I told you that 5 minutes ago. God damn.
Tell me I'm pretty. Please, boss, tell me I'm pretty now.
You are very pretty, Noah.
Yay.
God damn it. Alright. So, time to talk about our other psychotic little girl.
Yay!
And the quote-unquote poster child of the show. We're going to talk about Rena Ryuga. She is another girl in Hinamizawa. From my understanding, she is around the same age as Keiichi. Meon is the oldest among their group. Meon and Shion are the oldest. And then I believe it's Keiichi and Rena, and then Rekka and Satoko are the youngest of the main characters.
It doesn't help that we rarely see all the characters like lined up side by side, so we can get an idea about height and Studio Dean's fucked up proportions never give us a good idea about what size anybody is.
Well, it's not just that. It's not that. It's the fact that Keiichi explicitly states in the show that Meon is a grade ahead of him and Rena.
Right, I get that, but I still want to pick on Studio.
Older.
I want to call. I just want
Let
to
me
call
pick
out
on
Studio
Dean, damn it. Let me pick on Studio Dean, damn it.
Please, God damn it. They made shows that we like. It's just their animation always sucks. Like, go back and watch Fruits Basket. Perfectly good show. Terrible, lazy animation.
Some of the time.
I mean, if you want a decent looking Dean show, you could probably watch Rakugo. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, Rakugo is good. I need to watch season 2 still. Damn it. Anyway.
Yes, but no amount of Rakugo can be balanced out by like Hitalia and Hellgirl and First Love Monster.
Oh, Hitalia.
Do not bring First Love Monster to this house.
Again.
Do not bring
You
First
will
Love
all
Monster
watch
to this
it.
house.
You will all join me in the cult of the First Love Monster.
You
Make
volunteered, you asshole.
One of us.
Get out.
Except your one.
No.
Get
That was also a show with a lead female character who was a little bit crazy. Speaking of lead female characters who are very crazy, Rena.
So to describe Rena real quick here, she's about the same age as Keiichi. She actually was born in Hinamizawa, but moved away when she was young, only to move back a year prior to the present day of the show, after an incident where she kind of went through her school and beat up some kids with a baseball bat and broke some windows. So if that doesn't give you an early indication of the bitch being crazy, the bitch is fucking crazy. And
she wants her money, and she's gonna get it now. Where's Rena's money? Don't make a fool out of me. Where's the money?
Is she gonna beat up Mads Mikkelsen too?
But Rena here has a lot of like peppy moe personality, the cutesy kind of thing going for her. But she does have a very dark side to her, and will flip the damn switch on a dime. And holy mother of God, does this bitch go nuts. Anyway, the individual who voices Rena Ryuga is Miss Mila Lee, who has been in series such as far as I am aware of, almost every single iteration of Fate Stay Night, except for the Moe Prisma Iliad one.
Kiliad, Prism, Iliad, Self, Part 3, Schismford.
As far as I know, that's the only one she's done involved with. Lo and behold, she's written Tosuga for everything minus that. That's it. She was even in the 2006 version. She's also in. Recently, we actually discussed Mila Lee in Skip Beat several months ago, and then here we go, bringing it around.
Oh no!
Lead. She's the lead female character Yuki in Vampire Knight. You're welcome, boys and girls.
You know what? I don't think that we'll get around to talking to that show anytime soon. So I'm glad that we're getting our vampire quota out of the way.
No, that we can make this thing a thing next year.
No. Go back to Elfin Lead. Go back. That's
You'd rather have Elfin Lead
I would
than
much
Vampire
rather watch
Knight.
Elfin
That's
Lead.
Hilarious.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Amon, how do you feel about Mila Lee's performance as Rena? That's one way to start this.
Well, so here's the thing. As we mentioned previously, the Moe voices are a little, at best, hit and miss in this show. Mela Lesser is clearly trying her hardest with this. Here's the thing. I think the weird phoniness about it kind of works because Reina's got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So, I know mental health services in mid-'80s Japan were probably not the best, but I feel like people probably could have tried a little harder, to say the least.
I mean, it's something a little bit more than locking them up in cages. Yes, I think she could have gotten a bit more help.
But as a consequence, like, it ended up being this thing where, like, Reina's high-pitched peppiness always had a little bit of a phoniness to it, and given that even in the arcs where like she doesn't kill anybody, like she's just a normal girl who went through some stuff. She has enough weird moments where she will like start monologuing about the demon that in a weird way it kind of worked for me. It's like I have no idea if this is in any way, shape, or form purposeful, but it ended up drawing attention to the artifice in a way that I think actually really suited the character and how she's written in the show. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
Okay.
So like it is still like it's very like cutesy, high pitch, and she does what she can with that. Like she's giving her all for it. But it you know, like a lot of the show, when she gets down to having to like really sell you on the bad stuff, I think she actually nails that pretty well, even with the like weird moe voice on top of that. You see her walking around there with that big like old-timey axe thing. It's
oh my god,
fun.
that hatchet she has, or whatever the fuck it is.
That enormous fucking hatchet she has
Yes.
everywhere. It's just like, okay.
That's
Like, well,
totally
I'm
normal.
out of here. Goodbye.
I'm gonna stay away from you now. You're all the cute shapeless hats in the world can't change that anymore.
Here's the weird thing. Is it bad that I while I was watching the show, I was half tempted. I'm like, I wonder if I could put a cosplay of Rena together. And make like a fake hatchet and make sure it's like...
For a woman living in small town Japan, she is incredibly forward-thinking fashion for the mid-'80s. People would not be wearing those kind of outfits for decades, so like, kudos to her.
Alright.
But yeah, like in a weird way, like I enjoyed Mila's performance. I thought it like fit the character really well in ways that I don't know were intentional, but I was kind of happy with it anyways. It worked for me.
Okay.
So like kudos to her for that. I liked it.
Alright, Jet, how do you feel about Mila Lee's performance?
Okay. So I'll be honest with saying that Mila Lee can be kind of hit or miss for me sometimes as an actress. I really enjoyed her as Red and Fade, and I really enjoyed her as Canary in Hunter x Hunter and in the new season of The Seven Deadly Sins. But she's also done some stuff that I was really shaky on, like Kana in Rise of the Yokai Clan, and while I haven't seen Vampire Knight, I have heard things about her in that show.
You got me here for that one.
Now,
You got
well,
me here for that shit. You wait until it gets me. Oh boy.
To be fair, as a rule of thumb, if the whole show is bad, it's usually a direction problem, not a one-actor problem.
It's usually not a one-actor problem, I'm just saying.
No, it's a multiple actor problem with Vampire Knight, but go on.
Okay, so sadly her performance as Rena kind of falls into the miss category for me. Out of all the leading actresses in the show, she kind of sounded the least convincing when it came to playing up Rena as a hyperactive boy girl. And a lot of her attempts to match the mannerisms of the same performance just kind of served to make it sound even more awkward. I mean, I'll be fair in saying that she did improve on that end over time, but there was something about the tone that felt artificial enough that I could never completely get into it. Having said all that, I do actually think she handled the darker side of Rena extremely well. There's definitely a really notable shift in her tone of voice whenever Rena would go on about Oishiro's curse. Mm-hmm. And I liked some of her interactions with Keiichi during her arc where, she calls him a hypocrite when it comes to things like friendship and trust. And especially when you kind of find out what Keiichi's whole deal is in that arc, and it's kind of disturbing. Mm-hmm. But anyway, her so-called delivery of those lines where she calls them out actually kind of got to me a little bit. Unfortunately, a lot of those moments are in the last few episodes of the show, meaning that most of the time she's just doing the whole boy-girl invitation thing, and it didn't quite click with me. I mean, I can't say I hated this performance, and it obviously did have its high points. Again, I really liked her during all of Rena's darker moments, but as a whole, I'd say it was probably the weakest link of the main cast for me.
Okay. Noah, how do you feel about Mila Lee's performance?
I would not have said that Mila Lee was the weaker of the performances. Her role in the show really doesn't lend itself, I don't think, to a whole lot of dramatic acting, like nothing I was expecting. So I was pleasantly surprised when she not only had a sharp contrast between the cuter moe parts and then drops her voice and has a more serious tone, but also the fact that both of them sounded very intentional. I'm going to have to agree with Amon on the moe parts sounding intentionally fake to positive effect, because not only is her voice supposed to sound like that, the animation kind of gives off this overly chipper personality. Like, let's go look at the garbage, and we're going to
We're going on a treasure hunt.
We're going for treasure, and oh, hey, it's a dead body. Cool, kind of.
I'm taking them home with me.
We gotta go on a treasure hunt for the Colonel, guys.
I can't believe we went this far and I forgot that Colonel Sanders is an important part of the show.
You're
God damn
welcome.
it.
Yeah, Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders is an important part of the show. I'm taking you home with me was actually a proto meme for a while.
God damn it. Colonel Sanders, best boy 2018. Fuck you,
and
fight me.
That is why we are renaming this show Higurashi When They Fry.
God damn it.
Coming soon to a KFC near you.
I fucking quit. God damn it. Oh, God.
So
Anyway.
I did. There was no convincing way, I don't think, with that level of animation that we were going to have any voice actors who was going to make it sound convincingly moe. Like, contrast this with something like the Kyo Annie Key visual novel adaptations, Air, Canon, and Clanad, which take those tropes and play them straight. This is a show where it takes those tropes of slice of life, cute girl characters who you both enjoy being around and also want to protect from bad things happening to them, and subverts that by having them be the killers themselves, which is awesome. Like, that is great, and I'm honestly sad that we haven't seen more shows like that. You know, takes the, like, I want to see, like, a subversion of the idol genre like that, where you think that they're, like, you know, awesome idols who are trying to save the school, and then all of a sudden it turns out, no, they're trying to buy out the school and put everybody out of a job or something dark like that.
Oh, Lord. That would be interesting, actually.
Sunrise is going to get on that any minute now.
God
I can just
damn.
feel it. But, okay, as for actual Meilei's actual acting in this, the drop where she goes from fake cute, which I'll approve of, and then drops it down to the serious voice, and then all of a sudden the theme, Higurashi, no theme plays in the background with that quiet piano and the choir score in the background. That makes it more genuinely creepy. So you don't know exactly what's going on in her head, and we don't really find out until near the end of the show. So the fact that we don't really get a serious arc with her until the very end is kind of plays up why she's kept so mysterious throughout the whole thing. So there's honestly, like, I can see why people would prefer the Japanese. Like, having heard some of the Japanese, it's also genuinely creepy in a Japanese kind of way, but this is also creepy, and, like, this dub is creepy in a way that you would enjoy the mystery of trying to unpiece her, and that hard contrast between the cuter and the darker voice that she gives her is a lot of fun to listen to. So, and I think that deserves the praise. Like, when you can convincingly switch between two different types of voices that reflect the character's differing personalities, that's not always easy to pull off. It takes some chops.
As for me, I'm actually going to side with Jet a little bit more on this one.
Aw, boo. Back in your box.
Remember that problem I had with Rika, and with the voice not quite matching the character design?
Yeah.
Rena is another one where I had this issue. And
What
it was probably...
What is a cat-eyed moe girl supposed to look like? Or supposed to sound like?
My thing is, with this performance, it is very, very rough. There are moments where to me, it seems like the moe cute kind of gets overplayed. Mm-hmm. It needs to get dialed back a little bit. Though I think... Right. And there are also times where the moments, this part at least is fairly early on though. The moments where Rena does snap and goes in the crazy mode, very overplayed and needs to be dialed back a bit.
That was after the picnic and when they're in the part of the town where the dam was supposed to be, right?
A mix of that, and then I believe it was the first arc where that moment where she confronts Keiichi in the road.
Oh, right, with the hatchet.
Correct.
After he's been going around with a baseball bat, and it reminds her a lot of Satoshi, right? Yeah.
Yep, that scene in particular. I think it was pretty overplayed and could have been dialed back a lot. Granted, I think that's more of a directing problem rather than a performance problem, because later on in the show, she does come into her own as the character. And I think in the last arc of the show, that's where Mila definitely shines as Rena the most. Now she's had the chance to grow into the character and kind of get more of an opportunity of this paranoia and all these personality and complexities that Rena has. Because Rena has a much more complex story in that last arc, too. I think out of everyone, because it's Keiichi who has a story basically in the first arc. Then it's technically Meon. Then I think it's Satoko, then Shion, and then it's Rena. Rika we never really get any kind of real in-depth story with for season 1. But Rena, I think Mila definitely comes into her own the most and has the highest point for her character and her performance in that last arc. She definitely grew into it by that point. It's just, unfortunately, for the majority of the time, a lot of the performance was so overplayed and like overacted at points that it really needed to be dialed down a lot. But I think that's more of a directing problem than anything, than a performance problem. But Rena, unfortunately for me, similar to Jet, is probably one of the weakest performances of the entire show, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because I do like Rena as a character. Her in the Japanese, I enjoyed it a lot. It's just, I think because of the subpar poor direction on the dub's part, Mila, unfortunately, went too far with the character at times, rather than dialing it back a little bit. If that makes sense. Are we good to move on? We got one more character to go, and then we're done.
Yes.
Let's take a swing at it for a home run.
Woo! Knock it out of the park. Anyway, we're gonna talk about Keiichi Maebara, who is our quote-unquote surrogate lead, I guess you can say.
He's our point of view, basically.
Basically, he's basically our what's the correct term here?
Audience surrogate.
Yeah.
Basically, yes. There was a specific term and I couldn't think of it. I was blanking, but yes, audience surrogate.
I think
point of view.
No, the term I think you were thinking of was our token fuckboy.
Oh no, he's not a fuckboy.
He's not a
Pretty sure that's what you were going for.
No, he's not a fuckboy. He's not that much of a dick. But he does get fucked over
Are you
quite
sure?
a bit.
I was gonna say, he gets fucked over in just about every
He gets
arc.
fucked over, but if you're thinking of a fuckboy, they're the assholes.
He's
not that much of an asshole. He's just a paranoid little shit.
No, we can talk about this a little bit, but I don't think he's meant to be seen as like a nice guy. I really don't think so.
No, he's not. He's not. But he's also not a fuckboy.
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't get up any, like, aside from the murder, he doesn't get up to anything that like a typical like kid his age wouldn't.
Aside from the backstory we get in the last arc. Aside from that,
Look,
which we never see on screen, thank God.
Look, Amon, I don't know about you, but I have never in my life thought about taking a baseball bat to an uncle on a scooter. Never.
He did that to protect Sadako, alright?
Not even for Sadako, I wouldn't do that.
Like I said, Noah, aside from the murder.
Which, to be fair, would encapsulate that plus Rena and Meon in the first arc.
To be fair, it felt like everyone was just kind of extra mean in that arc for some reason.
Everyone.
The Sadako arc, yep.
They were all little.
Oh, especially Oishi, especially Detective Oishi. Anyway, our surrogate lead, Keiichi, he is the quote-unquote main character, you could basically say, who fairly recently moved to Hinamizawa, who ends up in this friend group with these bunch of cute little girls. And then he starts to slowly get involved in these conspiracies and mysteries regarding Oyashiro's curse and all these murders and disappearances. And he also goes nuts and either ends up killing people or dying in various arcs of the show. As for the individual voicing this character, and again, another one of the few times we talk about this man, Jet, you can correct me if this is one of the earlier performances for this individual. We have Grant George.
I have no idea how early on it is in his career this is. So.
Okay. So maybe, possibly, my brain's probably overthinking it, so probably not. Grant George, if you haven't heard of this individual before, you may know him as a couple various characters from the Fate series, including Lancer in Fate Zero. He was also in Kill la Kill, but most recently, I think the last time we actually talked about him was Skippy, but you guys did Fate Zero after the fact too, right?
Yep.
So yeah, we talked about in Fate Zero, and we've talked about in Skippy as Shofua. So Amon, how do you feel about Grant George's performance as Keiichi?
I think I generally liked it, although Keiichi feels this weird, like, depending on which arc you're looking at, Keiichi either has quite a bit to do, or he's a little extraneous, kind of depending on who you're looking at, and I think Grant George's performance sometimes reflects that a little bit. But I actually did like him. Obviously, he does not have the problem with the moe moe cute voices. I actually think that's...
If he was moe moe cute, I'd be very concerned.
That'd be a very strange take on this show. Consequently, like, of the main characters, I think he and Kelly kind of get to benefit from that, and they probably get to give the strongest, just straight performances. I actually liked it. Like I said, I thought he very believably played this, like, fairly normal, like, you know, teenage boy who just wants to hang out with his friends and not take anything too seriously, and there's, you know, there's some weird, like, local rumor stuff going around, but whatever, it's cool, right? And actually, I think he's sometimes the most fun to listen to in a lot of those, like, kind of generic high school comedy bits, just because he kind of he almost gets to tap into, like, his inner, like, shonen comedy protagonist. He gets to just be a dude, and I thought that was a lot of fun. But as I've said before, a lot of the, you know, sometimes judging the cast in the show is how do they behave when things go bad. And I really liked Grant George in a lot of that. I thought he was very good at playing Keiichi's paranoia in a lot of those segments, particularly the first one, where you, the audience, also don't know what is going on. I thought he sold that very well. I thought he came off as very believably scared, which, oddly enough, I feel like is something I feel like I watch, like, a lot of horror stuff I feel like doesn't, like, pay up, like, you know, not, like, over-the-top fear, but, like, actual concern for your own well-being all that much. I feel like that's not an emotion that comes up all that often in the stuff I watch, and I thought he delivered that very well. I could feel his actual concern for, like, what is happening here? Am I okay? Like, can I, like, Rena's standing out there in the rain staring up at the window. I am really off-put right now. What is going on?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
I'm concerned, and security doesn't come this far out into the country.
Nope. I generally enjoyed his performance. I thought I think he probably had the best balance between, like, being a normal person and, like, the more, you know, horror out there aspects. I thought, like, he feels hard to talk about just because, unlike with Shion, I feel like he has fewer, like, really big moments to talk about compared to a lot of the other characters. But I liked his performance. He felt very appropriate in a very positive way. I liked it.
Okay.
Anywho.
Jet, how do you feel about Grant George's performance?
Okay, well, if you've heard me talk about Grant George in this podcast, I've generally said that the man has one of the most naturally seductive voices I've ever heard.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and a lot of the characters he plays to ooze a massive sense of charisma. Keiichi Maebara is about as far south of that as you could get, and it was definitely very interesting to listen to.
I was wondering where you were going with this for a second.
Yeah,
so not one of
this was
characters.
not meant to be seductive, and I have many questions, Jet.
I must question everything. Why no Grant George seduce me? Why? Why is this not a thing?
So Keiichi is kind of a goober, as you would expect from a character who, you know, basically serves the audience's point of view. Though, you know, technically not the main character, since he doesn't, you know, always influence every arc of the show. And his degree of likability kind of depends on the story arc. Most of the time he's sympathetic, if annoying, while other times he can, you know, be a little bit of a prick, and, you know, even attempts to justify becoming a murderer for that one arc where everyone is really mean.
Well, he murdered people at 2 different points, actually.
Yeah. Through it all, Keiichi stands one of the dumbest human beings I have ever seen in anime, as, despite this show telling you he is some kind of a genius, He really thinks things
He
through.
is not a genius.
Yeah, he really thinks things through. He executes the single laziest murder plan I've ever seen, and quite literally cannot lie to save his life.
Look,
His ass should have been arrested, but that body disappeared.
Look,
Really what it comes down to.
Just because he's smart doesn't mean he's competent. There's a difference.
Fair. Point taken.
I mean, for what it's worth, though, I can never really bring myself to hate him, and that's partially due to Grant George's performance. Grant George plays Keiichi as nasally as he possibly can, making the guy sound like a total goofball in almost every scene he's in. And while on paper that would sound kind of annoying, it works really well here. And I was really able to buy to his portrayal of the character, like, almost immediately. It helps that Keiichi gets his occasional moments of seriousness, and Grant George handles those aspects really well, too. He was especially great at the end of the first arc, like Amon was saying, where Keiichi gradually goes suspicious of his friends before snapping. And I really appreciate how much he was able to make the build-up of Keiichi's sense of paranoia feel believable, since, that really is something you don't see in horror that much. Mm-hmm. And, before he finally snaps to go totally ham. And,
he goes for that home run.
Yep, and even more impressive, though, was... was how he handled Keiichi, in his darkest moments through the timeline where he tries to kill Satoko's uncle.
Yeah.
And, that mix of desperation, fear, and rage that he shifts through while executing his bad murder plan was really impressive, and I was also kind of floored at how well he was able to make it work. So for me, personally, this was actually my favorite performance of the show.
Really?
And it really helped to remind me how great of an actor Grant George is. I mean, it's kind of a shame the rest of the dub wasn't quite this good, but yeah, he totally nailed this for me. I liked it.
Okay. Noah, how do you feel about the performance?
Well, this is, again, why couldn't they have gotten actual children for this? It just boggles my mind.
God damn it.
It's not, it's
not
like
happening, Noah. Just stop.
Wanted realism in this show. Fine. So, because of the voice, we... in our profession, we are professional dub listeners, and we have heard many, many fully grown men pretend to be children before. So we have, like, the spectrum of believability. There's, like, on the really good end of it, and then there's, like, on the far end of it, there's, like, Crispin Freeman. So in this role here... I'm sorry, nice. I love you, Crispin, but not convincing young child character.
Has he played young children?
He did in Digimon.
Oh, God.
Oh, yes, that's right. We were in the middle of watching that. I forgot. In Frontier, he plays a actual child, but
that's hysterical. Anyways, go on.
Anyway.
So in this show here, George's task was to basically find the balance of making his voice sound convincing enough as a prepubescent, and it's on the believable end of the spectrum. Like, this is the point that I'll take it in anime voice acting realms. And in doing so, he keeps a slightly higher voice. He keeps a tenor throughout the whole thing that is it never really strays into the realms of unbelievable, which is good because this is an entire performance that has to shift from new kid in town who's just is supposed to act like a harem protagonist for the beginning of it, and by the end of it, he's turned into the guy who gets killed at the end of the whole thing, which is fun to watch. It's really fun to watch the guy who you thought was going to be the Mac Daddy turn into the Dead Daddy.
What?
Like, I mean, it's not, like, how to say, it's not my favorite acting role in the entire show, but that's just because it's competing against some very fun, campy performances. But
right.
Particularly the first arc, like the first arc where I think he actually does kill some of the characters with a baseball bat.
Yes.
I think he got drugged, wasn't it? Like they injected him with a syringe that made him act like that.
It's not clear if he actually was drugged or not. Actually, it's not 100% clear if he was drugged or not. However, in the last arc, when he finally realizes what he did, that syringe turned into a permanent marker.
Right.
So it's not 100% clear if he actually was drugged. I'm on the side of thinking, like, if you watch that first arc and not getting any of the clues, you might assume he might. After he realizes what he did, there's a good chance that he actually wasn't. And he just caved to the paranoia.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, as far as the actual acting, it's good. Like it's the kind of mid 2000s male voice that I guess is perfectly passable enough. Like it doesn't stand out enough to me to where like I would say like this is fantastic. And I feel like I should be praising his performance more than I actually am. But I guess it fit the exact archetype I was looking for. You know, like I set a bar for how I thought Keiichi was going to act in the dub, and this just cleared it. Didn't go over the top, it just cleared it. Which, again, if you're trying to decide between whether or not to watch this in English or Japanese, this is good enough for your average English listener to say, yeah, this is good enough to listen to.
Oh boy. Oh no. Oh,
What'd you
God.
do? What are you going to do?
Remember my problem I had with Rena and Ryuga?
Is this person number 3?
This is person number 3. I mean, at this stage, we got 2. It comes in 3s. I said there were 3, and clearly there's one person left.
Lilac, did you also want them to cast children in this role? Are you in this camp with me?
Absolutely. It would have been so much more believable. No, I'm kidding. God, I would never put a child through a show like this. Are you fucking kidding me? Anyway.
Just imagine, like, at the time period, we could have gotten, like, all the best Disney teen stars to
No.
in the show. We could have gotten Hilary Duff
Stop.
and Miley Cyrus and Ashley Tisdale.
Noah, no. Noah, no. I know you hate Disney that much, but Noah, no.
Let me have my dreams.
I will crush your dreams with a baseball
Just
bat.
like Keiichi crushed those characters.
Aha! Yeah. Oh, God damn it. Anyway, yeah. This is the third person where I felt that the voice for the character didn't match with the character design. However, in the case of Grant George's Keiichi, between the 3 of them, this isn't the worst. This is not like the absolute worst issue I have with this. This is more leaning on the, it kind of is, but it's kind of works. I think the performance is okay. I don't have huge gripes with it. There were moments, especially in the beginning, where to me the voice didn't match the character design. It didn't match what it was going for. But similar to Mila Lee as Rena, when she finally grew into the character by the end of the show, Grant does grow into the character. He absolutely does. There are moments throughout the show where, at times, while he was growing into the character, we had like a stumble or like took 2 steps back, because there were moments where I felt that it got overplayed, in terms of reactions and things like that. But
in this kind of show, you thought they were overreactions?
Yes, actually, there was to
Okay.
me, which is interesting. I think part of it goes back to when I was talking about the directing and writing of the show, where, because some of you guys were okay with the cheesy hamminess of it, I wasn't as much at first, and that's probably where my mindset originally went to.
Like, can I just ask one question then, Lilac? Do you have another dub that you can point to, say, like, this is the kind of acting that I expected from a show like Higurashi?
Shiki.
I haven't seen Shiki yet, so I can't know what it is you're referencing.
Shiki, to me, is one of the best horror anime dubs, period.
Okay, fine. We will
Shiki's-
reconvene.
Here's the thing.
After I've seen Shiki.
For me, Shiki is one of the best horror English dubs, period. Higurashi is a good show, though.
Yes.
Higurashi's one of my favorite horror anime shows. But, comparably, if we're talking about dubs, Higurashi does not hold a candle to Shiki to me. But, I digress. Yeah, it's one of those things where Grant had to grow into the character, and it was okay. It's kind of in the middle for me. Not a favorite, not one I disliked. But I will agree with what you guys were saying, especially during that first arc of the show, where he was slowly growing into that paranoia, as Meon and Rena are just like, Keiichi, come on, Keiichi, what's wrong? What's wrong? And it's just slowly eating at him. I did enjoy that a lot. But most of the time I felt that it's again, I think it comes down to similar to what Mila had with Rena's character. A good amount of the time it was a directing problem where it was overdone and needed to be dialed back a little bit. But by the end of it and throughout certain key parts in the show, I think he was great in terms of reactions and the paranoia and everything going on. But at the end of the day, I think it's just an okay performance, not a standout to me, because I have heard Grant George do a hell of a lot better performances. This is just not one of my favorites. I think with that being said, are we good to move to final thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we in the final time loop already?
Oh, absolutely. We are in the final time loop. Maybe we'll get up 1983 today. We'll find out. Yeah, we're still alive so far.
We can finally move on to the positive year of 1984.
Wait. Amon, what are your final thoughts on the dub for Higurashi?
I think the dub of Higurashi, I think, as we made clear, is a little bit of a mixed bag. It definitely has its highs and lows. That being said, I do think its reputation as one of the worst dubs is probably more a consequence of it being really popular for a period of time, rather than it actually being that bad. Like, this is not great shakes, but this has plenty of good moments, and is, even at its worst, I think, a perfectly serviceable way to watch this show. Like, you could do a lot worse than watching Higurashi with the English dub.
Right.
So, like, not 2 thumbs up, but, like, a thumb up and an A+ for effort, let's say.
A thumb up and like 3 fingernails short.
Yeah, there's.
Stop!
I had to do it. Jet, what are your final thoughts on the dub of Higurashi?
Okay, so I was a little worried revisiting the show because, since this shows of this genre kind of tend to not hold up all that well for me, and I hadn't heard great things about the dub, obviously. But surprisingly, I had a lot of fun with my rewatch, and, while the show has its problems, both structurally and in terms of how it presents certain things, it held up a lot better than I was expecting, and I think it's, managed to maintain its reputation as a horror classic pretty well. As for the dub, it certainly wasn't great, and there were some performances here that felt a little bit flat to me, but there were a few hidden gems here, and on the whole, it's pretty serviceable. I mean, if I were recommending the show to someone with, no particular language preference, I would probably direct them towards the Japanese track. But, if you're looking to watch the show in English, this dub will probably do you pretty okay.
Okay. Noah, your final thoughts, please.
So, I believe, like you said before, I'm the only one in this group who had not seen any of the show going into it, right?
Correct. Everybody else has at least seen the show at some point.
Yeah, so this was a fresh experience for me. And probably because I've been so heavily in watching all of the simul dubs recently, it was really nice to watch a show from a bygone era, back in the way off year of 2004, whenever the show came out. 2006 when the show came out, and that was kind of where the kind of shows that I really started to cut my teeth on when I got into watching anime was from around that same time period. So this felt kind of like coming back to home, and I think because my mentality is rooted in the kind of shows that were made around that time, I have kind of a softer spot for shows like this, which feel very, let's just do anything and have fun with it mentality that Higurashi is. There's plot holes you could drive a semi-truck through, and I don't mind any of that at all. This isn't something like Death Note where it's trying to be hyper-realistic so that any flaws in the story really stand out. They want to get to the gory bits. They want to make commentary about the backwards thinking of country people who stick to traditions that require the death and sacrifice of individuals. And that it's entertaining to watch. It's damn entertaining to watch, like to the point that I'm really looking forward to watching the second season as soon as possible. And so, because of all that, because of that positive reaction to it, I probably had a softer criticism of the dub overall, especially because I don't have another show that I feel like is like this. Like in terms of this over-the-top, melodramatic B-movie kind of acting. Diversity, or at least uniqueness, will land you some good praise when it comes to criticizing something, because, you don't have anything else to compare it to. And in this sense, despite all of the flaws that I agree with a good chunk of you guys' flaws when it comes to mediocrity or forgettable performances, like that kind of comes with the territory. But the parts that stand out to me really stand out, and I can recommend this dub to people who are more comfortable with English dubs. Like the Japanese is obviously better, but the English is good enough for people who preferred dubs to begin with?
So as I was just saying, when we were talking about Keiichi or Rena, whatever section it was, Higurashi is one of my favorite horror anime series, bar none. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, I love my horror mystery psychological because I am weird like that. But I'm not gonna lie, because again, this is the first time I actually ever watched the dub of Higurashi. I was a bit nervous, and even though I was the one who proposed this episode in the first place, like all gung-ho and like, I was like, we should do this show. Give me volunteers. Give me my victims.
She asked for people to be thrown into the pit.
Give me my victims. Throw them into the well.
And they just threw us in. You know, Megan and Andrew and Jamal, they picked us up and they tossed us in before we could object.
No, you threw yourselves into the well. Don't you drag them into this.
That's what they want you to think.
You volunteered yourself. Congratulations, you played yourself. Sorry, my brain went there. Yeah, even though I was gung-ho about doing this episode for Halloween this year, I will admit I was a little bit terrified about watching the dub because of all of the terrible things I heard about it. It's very infamous for being a horrendous dub. This is not the dumpster fire everybody makes it out to be. It is just okay. It is not spectacular or anything to write home about. But it's also not a complete and utter disaster either. Again, not that dumpster fire. The directing and writing is, again, I think subpar. It's in the middle ground. Some of the performances can range from over the top and need to be dialed back to forgettable to the point where I don't even know a damn thing about the damn character at that stage. But there are some fun moments, there are some fun gems of performances in there. If you do think about this show as more of like a B-movie horror type of deal, and you try not to take it as seriously, because after, it was rough, for me it was a little bit rough in the beginning to watch, but after I kind of got into it a bit more, it was definitely much more enjoyable for me watching this show. Once you kind of get past the initial, like, I would say, maybe once you get towards the end of the first arc, that's when you really start kind of getting the hang of it and understanding the intention of the dub. That's where it'll start really shining for you. But personally, I'm only going to say I recommend the Japanese over the English, mostly because we don't have dubs for the sequel seasons. And it's going to be very jarring if for those who like consistency in watching their shows, from jumping from an English dub to a Japanese between seasons, if you get what I mean there.
I imagine that the jump for me who watched this whole thing in English is going to have a little bit of a culture shock going into watching the second season solely in sub.
I mean, it's going to be a jump for me because I watched the Japanese like 5-6 years ago originally. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a jump for me when I finally, because I own all of Higurashi. Thank fucking God.
Where in the world did you get all of it?
Not done. Hold your horses. But yeah, at the very least, Higurashi, the show itself, I absolutely love it. It's really good horror, a lot of fun. Once you get past some of the the plot inconsistencies and the weirdness sometimes. And the dub is just okay. It's not a dumpster fire like everybody makes it out to be. But if you're interested in watching Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, as well as its sequel seasons Higurashi Kai and Higurashi Rei, they are currently available from Sentai Filmworks, both in a Blu-ray and DVD variations. However, Sentai Filmworks did announce, I believe, almost a year ago now, or at least several months ago, that they will no longer be printing DVD versions. So potentially, because I haven't looked lately, potentially the DVD versions of Higurashi and its sequel seasons could be out of print by this point, and your only availability will be through the Blu-ray.
The first season is already out of print as far as DVD goes.
There we go. So the only way to
Again.
again. But at least there's still the Blu-ray version, thank God. Has the complete version on Blu-ray come out yet? Because there's going to be a re-release with all the seasons I heard there was a re-release. I don't think it's come out yet.
Okay. Well,
unless it has, and I'm an idiot.
I want to.
Someone do quick
research.
research. Someone do quick research while I keep blabbering on.
Here,
Another
go.
way,
Stall for
another way
time.
to, if you don't want to spend an enormous amount of money or egregious amount of money on DVDs or home videos, another way you can watch the show as of right now is actually through HiDive, the streaming service where you will find all your Sentai film works made in Japan and all your fun little goodies. And we actually have some fun news for you guys too. This is the first time we're actually be talking about this. So, if you're interested in the HiDive service, or if you are an existing HiDive user, we at DubTalk are officially an actual affiliate for HiDive. So if you use the coupon code DubTalk2018 in your login or subscription or your sign up or whatever you get, you actually will get 50% off of 1 month of your HiDive subscription. So feel free to use that code, and you can enjoy a variety of different shows, from the classics like Higurashi or Princess Tutu we're going to throw in there, because that's a fun show. Interesting contrast we're going in there. Or some of the new simulcasts or dubcasts going on, such as Tada Never Falls in Love, as well as Maid in Abyss and Princess Principal, as well as a variety of others. So yeah, use the coupon code DubTalk2018 to get 50% off of a month subscription of HiDive, and enjoy some fun shows for this Halloween. Primarily Higurashi, because Higurashi's a fun fucking show. Anyway,
it's a bloody good time.
Did we quickly solve the question of the whole complete collection?
Yes, Sentai put out a complete series Blu-ray collection in December of last year, so you can get that right now if you want.
There we go, done and done. For anything that the hosts of the four of us do here at DubTalk, if you're interested in anything that we do, quick, plug yourselves. Jet, go first.
Okay, for me, you can usually find me on Twitter, Jet0Infinity, or at Divine Nega, where, I will usually be ranting about cartoons, anime, that sort of thing. You can also occasionally find me on my blog, Animation Infinity, where I will sometimes write things.
Okay. And you still do stuff for the fandom post, correct?
Yeah, somewhat, but mostly just My Hero Academia.
Or, well,
yeah.
Was My Hero Academia.
Yeah, I mean, well, season 4 already got announced, so, that'll happen eventually.
Eventually, but right now you're just like, I'm taking a breather. I need a nap. All right, Amon, what any fun things we can find from you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at AmonDuelUS. Duel is to using it, where I talk about music and movies and comics and so on. I have two things. I have a Dusty Old Song. First, I have a request for you, the listener.
Yay!
As we mentioned earlier in the show, Higurashi clearly plays with the fact that it looks like a cutesy moe show, but it's actually horrifying. And I'm curious. So I think all of us, we were watching anime around the time that came out, even if we weren't watching like Air and Canon and Clanad, we were aware of that style. I'm curious, if you're younger than us, if you started watching anime after that particular style of moe kind of fell out of being really popular, does this show have the same effect? Tweet us at Twitter, comment on the video. I'm curious to know if you've seen it recently. If you're going to watch it after this episode, let us know. I'm curious. But I do have a dusty old song for us. I actually have two.
Okay.
Hooray.
Since this is set in June of 1983, I tried to think, can I find a spooky song that was released in June of 1983?
Oh my God, did you?
No, sadly. But I found one from
sad.
April. I found one from April and one from July, so I think that's good enough.
Close enough.
So perhaps somewhere in Higurashi, if this little town happens to be located near some technical college with a hip radio station, maybe one day one of the characters could turn on the radio, tune in, and listen to either She's in Parties by British goth rock legends Bauhaus, or
She's in Parties? That's a fun-ass song title. What the hell?
She's in Parties.
She's in Parties. I thought you said cheese. I'm like, wait.
No, I just can't enunciate.
Okay.
Or they might hear The Walk by The Cure.
Okay.
The granddaddy of British goth legends.
Oh God.
So go check those out. They're great songs.
Noah, any fun and interesting things from you, sir?
I'm just, I'm listening to my lovely wife complain to me because I'm not getting her a glass of juice right now. She has to go get her own damn glass of juice.
Aside from that, Noah.
I'm such an awful husband.
Aside from that, Noah.
Besides from that, you can follow me on Twitter at Noah Clue, where I like to talk about things that are going on in the cartoon world and about how you should watch Hilda on Netflix, or you should watch the You should watch G-Kids sweep the Academy Awards come 2019. No, I'm not bitter about the fact that Pixar is probably going to win again. I want G-Kids to win again. I want them once. I want them to win once, please. And I also have a YouTube channel, Journey Traveler. Potentially work on stuff for that. I just finished a very extensive editing project for the Dub Talk podcast. So now that I'm
finished it, didn't you? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. So hopefully I'll be able to put my video editing skills to things on my own channel as well coming up soon.
Sweet. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter at Lilac Anime Review, with review being spelled REVUE, where I post about daily life and shenanigans and all this fun other stuff. And I actually get to talk about this. This is the first time I get to talk about this. I started a blog again. If you're interested in anything related to anime or my personal life stories or any random stuff I think of and want to talk about on a blog, you can go to my blog, lifeandtimesotaku.wordpress.com. Right now, the only things I have in here are when I saw the My Hero movie in theaters and the Gorillaz concert that I actually saw a couple weeks ago now. But I am working on a variety of different things. Hopefully by the time that this episode goes up, I will have posted my 10 spooky anime to watch for Halloween. Higurashi, hint hint, is one of the shows on that list, by the way. But for anything else, if you are interested in the Dub Talk crew, for anything else that we do, there's a few ways to follow us. The first and foremost, you're already here on YouTube. You can subscribe to us here. We also have a Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitch channel. All of them are at Dub Talk Podcast. And if you enjoy what we do here and interested in supporting what we do here, we do have a coffee page if you are interested and you want to buy us a coffee, and we sincerely appreciate it if you do or don't decide to donate, whatever tickles your fancy. I believe that is it for us here on this very spooky edition of Dub Talk on this Halloween night. Gentlemen.
And we actually survived with all of our limbs intact. For now.
For now, Noah. I think Noah.
Wait.
You know what? We have a problem. You know, you've been causing a lot of issues lately. I think you might need to distinguish yourself right now to kind of clear things out.
Can I just say I'm sorry 1,000 times and make it all good?
Nope. Not happening.
Oh God!
You gotta distinguish yourself today, boys. Gotta distinguish yourself. Hold them down.
Don't make me do it.
Hold them down.
No. Wait. Lilac,
just go through with it. No, it'll be better that way.
I just want 3 fingernails. That's all I want.
I only have 2 left. Why are we friends? Oh God.
This is music to my ears. Have a
How
safe
am I going
and
to
happy
scratch
Halloween.
my ass?
Have a safe and happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen.
There's
And
blood in
until-
my white carpet. I can't get
until
that. Nothing
next
gets it
time.
out. Have you ever tried to get blood out of a white carpet before?
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about my friends.
Aloha, please send the police. Somebody reset the timeline.
There's no resetting of the timeline here.
Fuck!
To get my head